Yo, okay, here we go. Somebody's starting a show here if you're tuning in. Don't worry, we're gonna get started just a second. I did just realize, as I'm starting the show, as I'm sending out the text message alert system, as I'm sending out the social media, I realized I never sent out the newsletter, never sent out the thing with the call-in link. So I'm gonna do that. We're gonna listen real quick to Feeding the Ducks, the best, most popular, maybe God's favorite royalty-free stock music that comes with this streaming software, while I write out the subject of this email real quick. Let's do it. Canary Cry Clubhouse is live. That's you guys. We're here. Oh, and I didn't even start the recording. I'm going to start the recording right now. Don't worry, I'll give you some video in a second here. I'll give you some video in a second. There we go. All right. Email. Let's loop that music, DJ. Again, give me that Feeding the Ducks one more time. DJ Quack. Send it down. That was stupid, DJ Quack. What am I thinking? All right. Doing stuff behind the scenes. Send. Go, email. Go. Join your brothers out in the inboxes, in the spam boxes, in the promotions boxes, in the updates boxes. Go. Fly free. The email is free. The email is out in the wild. And we can get to the show now. Let's do this. We're going to start the show. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to look who do we got in the chat. Okay, we got a few people coming in slowly. That's okay. You know what's going to help is I'm going to take off the image. Here we go. I'm taking it off. It's me. What's up? This is not the official start of the show, but we're just hanging out before we get started here. You'll notice I'm wearing a t-shirt today. I thought maybe for these call-in shows I'd be maybe a little bit more casual. I made the mistake of wearing a green shirt. So I'm a little see-through. I didn't think about it. But it's cool. It's like, I don't know. It's like, who even cares? Who even cares, you know? It's just a live stream, no big deal. It's what we do, us young people. We just go live all the time. All right, don't worry. It's not just going to be all rambling for me. We're going to get the show started in just a second. Big old shout out to everybody who received the text message. If you're not on it yet, you should get on the text message alert system. It's very important to stay in. You know, the big tech companies, they don't want you tuning into the show. They don't even want you to know that it's here. In fact, regularly, it's just a matter of time before you are one of the ones who gets quietly, silently unsubscribed from the show, and you'll never see it again. Unless you take some steps to prepare yourself. Prepare yourself by joining the newsletter. Go to canarycry.party, join the newsletter. You'll see the button is very easy. But even more fun, join the text message alert system. That's right. Text the word canary. Just the word canary. No exclamation points, no nothings. Just 877-740-3226. Congratulations to all of the new people who joined since yesterday. Nice handful of you. Welcome, welcome. We'll send out a little message before every show, so you'll never miss one. You won't have to rely on the big tech platforms. However, we all know everybody's favorite part of the text message alert system is that you can text that number back. It's very fun. You should text it back. You do text it back. You can text it back whenever you want. I can't carry on a text conversation with you because it's very expensive for us. But you can keep an ear out, see if I read your message or if you hear a area code of someone near you or by you or whatever. That's very fun. You know there's other Canarians in your area. 765 says thank you. Text received. God bless and be safe. God bless you. 940 says thank you, Basil, for confirming my existence yesterday. Please remind me again today so I can move on and enjoy the show. You exist, 940. You do exist. 406 says chilling in the background. Thanks, Basil. That's Monica. P.S. Orange Man bad. Oh, we'll we'll see how the conversation goes. I might get into the order of orange, the orange order, where Orange Man, the one, the Orange Man, secret society. We'll get into it. 708 says, bro, I just gave up listening to Ben Shapiro debate John MacArthur. Can't beat that. Wow. Thank you for letting us know that you gave up. Can't beat that. Are you listening now? I think this means you're listening now instead of Ben Shapiro. So thank you very much. This is very important. I'll tell you what, you're much more valuable here at this show than you are at Ben Shapiro's show. It's just how the economics work out. 719 says, currently drinking some Cage Rattler coffee, ready to listen to my best buddy Basil's crazy rants. Let's do it. 970 says, Clubhouse, fun. That's right. We'll talk about that. All right. So text the word Canary. Get on the list. The number is 877-740-3226. Here it is. You can see it right there. Boom. Okay. Let's get this show started. Let me do a little one of these things. We go like this. So Gonz will know when to actually start the podcast version. It'll be very soon. I'm a little unnerved. It feels like I'm forgetting something, but I think we're doing it all. We're just going to wait for this song to fade out, and then we'll start the show. Let's go.
Called it. We got a caller. We got a caller on the line here.
Welcome. What's going on, everybody? Today we are calling this show Canary Cry Clubhouse. That's fun, right? That's a new fun one. We're going to experiment with figuring out exactly what to call these things. Producers, you got to put your hat in the ring, okay, if you have a better idea. Or you just let us know what you think. Canary Cry Clubhouse. Last episode was Canary Cry Family Hour, which is also still very sweet and fun. But today, it's Canary Cry Clubhouse. Welcome. Got a great show today. Going to be hanging out. Going to be taking some callers. We love that. Highly recommend. If you've never called in before, consider calling in. If you have called before, you still also call in. But there was a conversation last episode about people being a little bit shy to call into the show, which is totally understandable. And I talked a little bit about how traumatizing it was to start hearing my voice for the first time. This is many years ago. And I didn't want to confirm to those people that they shouldn't call in. That's what I'm trying to tell you, is that you get over it. You learn to love it. The things that you hate about your own voice, you will begin to love. I promise you, it gets better. Podcasters or aspiring podcasters. But this is the point of the show. The point of the show is to hear from you. Let the other canaries around the world know that you exist. It's been a running joke on the text message alert system recently, is that people like it when I read their text message, because it confirms that they do exist. They are not just a hologram or disembodied spirit or something like that. Another great way to confirm your existence is to call in and talk to me. I promise you, if you need confirmation that you are extant, I am the perfect man to do that for you. I'll consider it my ministry. Look at this. We got some great people in the chat. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi, everyone in the chat. KHP, Night of the Hungry Panda, says he's very busy today. Probably won't call in, but pick up the slack, people. Lol, that's right. Sir Darren, Knight of the Canary Cry Roundtable of Knights and Dames. He knows what this place needs. He knows what this, and it's you. So, if you're on the newsletter, if you get the newsletter, if you're signed up for the newsletter, that's very good. You're one step towards victory. If you're not signed up for the newsletter, go to canarycry.party in your browser. You'll just see a button. Click on that button. You'll put in your info. You'll get on the newsletter. Why would you do that? Well, because the newsletters are packed with wisdom and humor that I put in them with my mind. and my brain, both of them. But also, there's all sorts of resources, very important resources, show notes, and a call-in link, the chat link. You click on it, it'll ask you a few questions, then you can watch the show from the background. I will put the call-in link into the chat later, but maybe not. Maybe I'll just put it in right now. I'm just going to put it in right now, just in case anybody wants it. I will also put it in later. But I don't care. I don't even care. You call whenever you want. This is not just my show. This is your show too. And you call in whenever you want. Don't let anybody make you think that you have to wait for my permission to call into the show. You click this link. It'll put you in a waiting room. You can watch the show, listen to the show there. And then I'll see you there. Oh my gosh. Somebody's already in. Look at that. That's how it works, folks. Let's actually check in. Let's check in with a caller right off the bat. This sounds fun. We're going to do this. Don't worry. We're going to get to the Beyond the Verse, Gonz's new mini documentary on demons. We're going to have a chat about it. I have some things that I will chat about, as I always do. But first, let's start the show with a caller. We're going to say hi to the one, the only, Mr. Davy Frost. You're on the air, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, Basil, can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Okay. I can. I usually have trouble with this headset, so just making sure.
It's so far so good, buddy. Thanks for calling in.
All right. A lot of pressure, man. First thing off the bat.
You know, it's totally not pressure on you. You just remember, this is Basil's under control. If anything goes wrong, it's totally Basil's fault. I'm happy to take responsibility for that. But I thought it'd be fun. You know, I don't know. I don't really know why I do a lot of the things I do, and I'm not really sure if there was a good reason for me to be like holding off on the callers for a whole bunch of time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and just, by the way, I'm going to take this opportunity for you calling in so I know that I exist, and there's somebody live hearing me when I say this, which is there is absolutely no pressure to the callers to say anything interesting, to say anything profound, to say anything that changes any minds. You probably will, and the callers often do, but, you know, it's in God's hands. It's just showing up. That's 99% of the mission, buddy, and you are showing up. Do you have anything on your mind?
I do. What you guys were talking about last week with the that spiral, what was it, under the pyramids or something like that?
Yes, the imagery that found a 2-kilometer structure under the pyramids, 8 pillars with a sort of coil going down them.
Yeah,
Spiral
and
thing. Yeah.
that kind of is it possible that it could be some kind of energy harvester? I think it's possible, and here's why.
Yeah. Tell me.
As an electrician, we deal a lot with transformers, you know, and they
Yes.
work off the principles of magnetic induction. So a conductor moving through a magnetic field, you know, applies a voltage to that conductor, right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's fully possible because, you know, while we can, you know, somewhat manipulate our understanding of the magnetism that we can actually interact with, you know, just like there's spectrums of light, there's different frequencies of sound. Who's to say that there aren't spectrums of magnetism, you know, different types of
Totally.
magnetic fields?
Absolutely.
And I think it's completely possible. And I also think it might actually explain also gravity to a degree. You know, like who's to say that, you know, you can see how magnets work and
Yeah.
how opposite poles attract, right? Well, who's to say that there isn't some other frequency or spectrum of magnetism that's interacting with the molecules or atoms in our body in such a way that it holds us to this, and all matter, all physical matter, to the surface? Do you
Absolutely.
know what I'm saying?
I
Like
totally know what you're saying.
it kind of goes along the lines of I think some of the flat earthers, which I could go either way really. I think it lends itself more towards that type of model as opposed to say the globe being that just all matter is holding itself to a central point, in 3 dimensions, right?
Totally. Yeah,
Uh,
right.
so I don't know. That's just kind of stuff that it had flowing through my brain when I heard you guys talking about that.
No, I
Um,
think you're totally right. I mean, here's the thing about it. And I think one of the this is one of the credible bits of the idea. Now, whether or not the imaging actually saw what it saw, all the principles of a giant object, structure below the pyramids being some sort of energy harvester, all the concepts, all the fundamentals are totally 100% there and
mhm.
100%, not only like verified and obvious in the scientific community, but like are practical, used practically all day, every day. We don't even notice it. Yeah, as far as um, gravity, and this is one thing that I think flat earthers get right. I mean, I think they get a lot of stuff right, but they also get this right, which is science doesn't actually know what gravity is. They have no
Right,
idea what it
right.
is, what causes it. They have no understanding of like the actual fundamental, materialist explanation of gravity. They know what it does, and they can sort of like use that in practical ways, but they admit they have absolutely no idea. They're like, is it a particle? Is there a little tiny particle called a gravitron? Is it, Richard Feynman in The Electric Universe was saying how it's, probably electromagnetic, just like you're saying, that everything's electromagnetic. And the idea that there would be energy in the earth to harvest is so like on its face blatantly obvious and credible to even like the least scientifically you know
Mhm,
educated person, because the earth itself has its own magnetic field, whether it's a ball or whether it's a dome, whatever it is. It has its own magnetic field, and in fact that magnetic field might be shifting and might kill us all in a few years.
well,
But
they say that, but is that really true? How do they even know that the poles supposedly shifted 60,000 or whenever it was, thousands of,
you
nobody
know
was there to observe it and keep a record of it. So how could they possibly even,
I'll say
it's
this.
it's
This
just
is
more.
it's not my area of expertise, but I do keep up with Space Weatherman on X, and he is sort of devoted his career to this kind of stuff. The only thing I know is since they started accurately measuring in like 1900 or something like that, not only has the pole wobbled, electromagnetically sort of wobbled, they have this little map, but it's actually sped up wobbling. How do they get that? I don't know. Who's getting that? I don't know. But they're certainly freaked out by the way that the movement of the poles, the magnetic poles, not the physical poles, have shifted just in like the past 10 years or something. It's like sped up 100 times. Who knows? I don't know. But we do know that there is, some sort of, I mean, even mechanical energy, like the act of stepping on a spring and attaching to that spring to some sort of like electricity generating thing. I forgot what it's called. I was just looking at it. Some fancy, like, you can get floor tiles that when you step on them, the weight of you pushing down on a spring turns the mechanical energy into electricity.
Mhm,
Even just the latent seismic activity that's always going on. If you have an object that's 2 kilometers deep, like long, deep into the ground, even the like micro movements of seismic activity could theoretically be uh, whatever transitioned or sort of harvested as electrical energy. All these things are
mhm.
totally possible. I as far as the pyramid thing, I've kind of had my go at it, trying to like verify the things. I'm having trouble verifying, but the concepts are all there. So why not? Why not?
Yeah, and I mean, over the past, I don't know, 4 years, man, I've just grown more and more distrustful of any, anything out of, and not to say that scientists are evil or in their pursuits, but just the fact that I think there's a lot of arrogance that abounds in their understanding. Like, what's the control for all the things that they're measuring, right? How do they stand outside the experiment to observe the experiment?
Yeah, there's
You know what I
always
mean?
that.
Like,
Yeah.
how do they even know what they're measuring? What if there are spectrums to magnetic energy and magnetism, and that's what they're measuring? They're measuring you know what I'm saying? It
Oh,
could.
and for sure there are. You know,
So that's kind of my thing. How can they be so certain that these things are happening when they're inside the experiment and they're not standing outside, like from God's perspective?
where I see the biggest breakdown between, I would say true scientists, credible, authentic scientists, not those who are sort of captured by the system and used for economic purposes and maintaining a narrative, this kind of stuff. Of course, scientism, we call it, sort
Yes.
of the religion of science, is different. But there's some scientists who are true and authentic in the thing, and most of those ones will say, we actually don't really know what's going on at all. We only really know that we're able to measure something,
Right.
and we try
Right.
to make observations about the effect of what we're measuring. But I mean, yeah, and then you get into like quantum mechanics and the double slit experiment and like, do things even exist unless there is somebody looking at them, like all this crazy stuff. So,
Hmm.
look, I can't see under the pyramids. We could do a Schrodinger's cat. Perhaps there is and both is not a giant energy harvesting device that was built by, giants in the antediluvian world who are then punished for their their abominations to God, and the pyramids were just left over. Is that likely the case? 100% absolutely. Other stuff, we can just kind of ponder about it.
It really is. It's all up for debate. And I think my own personal philosophy on it is God intentionally leaves so many things unknown and up for debate is because it truly exposes the nature of a person's heart and how they treat someone they disagree with, right?
Totally. Yep.
So none of us have the knowledge he has, and yet, just like the Pharisees, Jesus was constantly exposing the hypocrisy of those guys, and they thought they knew everything, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And there's so many Pharisees. I mean, I'm always catching myself too. It's not like I'm claiming to be perfect in any way, but it's like you see it everywhere, every subject, any particular thing. It's like the only thing that you can truly hold to, as far as like knowledge versus belief, what you know versus what you don't know, is that Jesus is king.
Yeah.
He is the Son of God. He is king. That's all any of us really know.
Absolutely. That is 100. I mean, that is where I've been, bro. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah, bro.
it doesn't even matter. Look, flat earthers, what's up? I love you guys. Again, I'm required legally, I'm obligated to say that we did episodes on flat earth before it was even something that they knew to censor. 2015, like early days. I fully understand the flat earth model. I fully have done certain experiments myself that have blown my mind, and I encourage other people to do that. The moonlight versus moon shade temperature difference makes no sense, totally wacky. And so there's a lot to go there. However, what I am, as an example of what you're saying, what I am no longer capable of enduring is oh, well, you're not a flat earther. Well, you're a shill or from the CIA or you just don't know or whatever. And this goes across the board. This goes
Hmm.
for, politics, of course, different science, of course. One can be, if one is able to possess the truth about a topic, it literally does not matter if that truth is used as some sort of weapon against people, or it twists your heart against those who don't have the truth, and it's a way to separate yourself from people you think are stupid and hold it over them. I mean, that is just a one-way ticket to Grumpsville. And I think that exactly what you're saying, like the true truth, the true reason, the true test, the reason why we are here is when we do have the truth, what does that do to us? How do we act with that? And it goes back to the fundamental basics of believing in Jesus Christ. I mean, it's me talking about the end of the world here in 2025. What do we do about it? The simple answer, the unsatisfying answer, but the true answer is to continue on the very basics that we learned when we first came to Christ, which is pray, read the Bible, turn from sin. That's there. What else is there? There's not a whole lot else. And that can sound very simple and very unsatisfying to people. And trust me, I have been a Christian for 100% of my life. If anybody feels that that is an unsatisfying answer to all of life's questions, it's me. But it is obvious that it is the core of everything, and without it, we are just clanging cymbals and gongs. There's nothing to it, baby. So I think, who knows? Would I like to see the pyramids start glowing and shoot a laser up in the sky and like blow up the moon or something? I mean, who knows? I think that would be exciting. It would certainly be an exciting turn. But we know that this, unfortunately, it's probably going to be one of those things that like 5-10 years from now, whereas it's going to be like, oh yeah, remember they found this stuff beneath the pyramid, and oh, whatever happened to that? Oh, that's crazy. I can't even find the research paper anymore. Oh, all the videos have been taken down. Oh, it's just disappeared now. Whoopsies.
They're going to have an underground coil structure treaty across all the different countries and nations to,
Dude, yes,
protect it, because
it's going to be like a denuclearization treaty where
right.
That makes me want to go start. Again, I've mentioned this. I think I mentioned in that episode. Even when I was doing this show out of the garage in like 2012 and didn't have a whole else lot going on, so I was sitting there with my, Nikola Tesla Devices for Dummies book and just sitting making all these little devices that you can actually pull, electricity from the air, pull it from the ground. You can pull electricity from all sorts of stuff. I mean, you just stick a copper rod down into the earth, you're getting light bulb level energy, baby. Just letting it sit there. Times that by a bajillion with something 2 kilometers in the ground. No doubt that that's the case.
And that type of stuff, that's kind of what leads me to believe that it's, magnetism, right? Knowing what I know and all the work I've done with electricity, it's fascinating, as you're going through the theory of everything. And, even then, it's funny, my one of the guys that taught me coming up, one of my journeymen, he asked me, oh, so you understand electricity now? And I said, yeah, I think I do. He started laughing. He said, well, so you're the guy, huh? Maybe we should all be asking you questions because you understand it. And I just kind of was confused for a moment. And he said, that's why it's a theory, dummy, because nobody understands it. We can observe it and we can make predictions based on observation.
Yeah.
He said, but nobody really knows what's going on. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess you got a point.
Yeah. And there's an interesting allegory for faith there, too. When it comes to certainty and faith, that can evolve into systematic faith, that can evolve into, things like trying to coerce God with your actions to try to accomplish things, whatever, getting your prayers answered, stuff like this is kind of a similar principle where when certainty reigns, you can be certain that things will go wrong sometime down the line, and because you're sort of trapped in this certainty without recognizing that both electricity and God are really have levels and layers that are pretty much incomprehensible to the human mind. Just like you were saying, the like, how do we even know what we're measuring? How do we even know what we're, what about the spectrum outside of our ability to measure? There's a whole universe outside
Hmm.
of our ability to measure when it comes to electromagnetism, and there's a whole universe of God outside of our ability to understand, at least with our earthly minds. And some people kind of get a little wobbly when I say stuff like that, because there's this idea where faith means certainty, where faith means you have to, have an answer for every spiritual question or whatever. But, if you're not recognizing that our human ability to perceive the parts of God and the aspects of God that we do isn't a tiny sliver of the infinity of the creator of the universe, then we're no better than somebody taking money to write a scientific paper and get it published for political reasons.
Exactly. And that kind of leads into why so many different, why are there so many different denominations when we all believe in the same book, right? The same God,
Yeah.
because one person has an idea of what they think it is,
Hmm.
and so they go and create this whole um, extra reason why we have to separate ourselves from each other.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit frustrating.
It is interesting, and I'm gonna now process out loud, so nobody take what I'm about to say as sort of don't write it down, I guess, but just to process that a little bit, because part of me is kind of like, well, of course there are endless amount of denominations, because trying to understand the details of God and what he expects from us is so important that it could lead people to separate from one another. I could see that, I could see some sort of, if not positive aspect, at least, attempt at virtue, where somebody could think that might be a good idea. And there's also, that is sort of an attempt by human beings as a whole to try. And try is the operating word here, because really anything we do is in vain in the end. Uh, as far as like works and what our human brains are able to accomplish and what problems we can work out with our tiny bird brains. It is this attempt by people to broaden the scope of the spectrum of what they know or what they see or what they can. So, like, I want to give credit to humans for really trying to figure it out. But yes, so far in all of human history, I would say for the majority of splits in groups of believers, or however you want to define different doctrines and traditions and sects of Christianity, for the most part have been in vain and not really served maybe the purpose they were hoping. But it's kind of what it is like to be a human here. A recognition that
Hmm.
it's that our brains are so tiny and our perception is so small, and an acceptance that it's okay to not have it figured out, but also, as the Bible says, it is similarly God's pleasure to hide mysteries, and it's man's pleasure to seek them out. Doesn't necessarily mean we'll find them, but it is kind of a core part of the relationship between man and God, is that it's sort of this never end. There's so much to find, there's so much to discover about God, that it's sort of a never ending process. And it's supposed to be like that. If we were able to fully comprehend all that God is and all the characteristics that God is and could be and will be and has been forever and ever, amen. something's got to keep us occupied in this material world until we get to go back and be with him.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying a minute ago, is that we need to acknowledge the fact that we don't know a lot. There's so much that we don't know. I mean, what we do know is, a grain of sand on the beach that is, you know, God's knowledge, right? Um, Not even the grain of sand. It's literally the single atom that makes up that grain of sand is what we know versus what he knows.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I think just this world is full of traps to I mean, how many rabbit holes have you been down in the past, since you've been doing this? And it's so easy just to get lost on one subject and just get stuck there.
yep.
Um,
It is a trap.
and it is, and I found myself there a few years ago and realized what I was doing, and you have to get back on track with, like, it goes along with what you were saying too about it's a daily, I don't want to call it a grind because that's kind of a profane word in relation to what you're talking about, but just,
Mm-hmm.
reading scripture, praying,
Back
it's
to
not fun,
basics.
and yeah, exactly, but it's literally the answer to when things are going wrong in your life. Like, really, what else do you have?
Yeah, exactly. There is nothing, there's nothing outside of that if you don't have that. I mean,
Hmm.
again, like we're told in scripture, if we don't have love, then what's the point of anything? There's nothing there. It's empty, empty space. Kind
Exactly.
of
And
like our holographic reality. Whoa.
what do
Whoa.
you think reality is then?
I don't know. I trip out on that all the time. I try not
Yeah.
to bore people with it, but you know, I'm a big fan of, at least from what we can measure, you know, stuff is made of atoms. Atoms are 99% empty space. The stuff inside of atoms is 99% empty space. When you touch something, you're not actually making contact with other atoms. You're just feeling the invisible electromagnetic force of those atoms pushing back against you. I mean, even at least to our understanding right now, it's as close to a hologram as you could describe. Uh, there's some sort of physical, but it's just such a small amount of physicality. And you think about what a hologram is. Hologram is mostly light. We know this, but it's not actually all light because the hologram needs some sort of substrate to bounce off of, to reflect. And that's why they use things like fog, or if you're the military, you use, aluminum glitter to
Yeah, this
shine your lights on to make holograms in the sky to trick a whole country.
chemtrails.
Chemtrails, like that's the thing. So, I mean, when we say hologram, it's quite literally the same concept as us making a hologram, which is 99% nothing and 1%, just something for nothing to reflect off of. And so, as far as like what we perceive that we know about reality, where space as a whole, if there's such thing as space, is like 99.9% empty, and then even our bodies, the atoms that make up our bodies, are 99.9 infinity% empty space with just a couple of little dots floating around. And then inside of those dots, it's another case of basically nothing reflecting off of nothing. So, I mean, the hologram theory is a really, I think, apt comparison. I don't know about comparison, allegory at least, or metaphor, to at least what we know, if what we've been told about sort of the quantum world is real. But I mean, that fits with a lot of what we're told in the Bible as well. I mean, the sort of empty nature of this world, this sort of fleeting invisibleness that is what we perceive to be reality. The uh, the the realness of what comes after this, and not investing so much of our, I don't know, I guess our faith in the physical realm, because in the end it's all dust anyways, and we are
Hmm.
dust. And that's, that's what a hologram is. It's a bunch of dust of some kind with some light shining on it. And so, if it is the case that there is some sort of tiny cosmic dust floating around and the light that's reflecting off of it is God in some way who spoke creation into existence, that works out pretty well for me. I actually think the hologram, thing compared to simulation, although I don't think they are, I think, conceptually those things uh, could be the same. And no, I don't mean a simulation by aliens who have us hooked up like our physical bodies are somewhere else or our brains are in jars. But I've referenced it before as mind of God simulation, where God is sort of the I mean, to put it in sort of a silly term, and this is, I think, not so theologically off. God is like the Imagineer that makes the hologram, run or whatever. Um, I expect it's something like that. But I will say, I am not very invested and I'm not very certain about any of that, but it is fun to think about. What do you think?
Same. Yeah, I could go along with that. I lately I've been kind of feeling like it's definitely being manipulated in certain ways,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and you can see just the whole theater of politics and all that, right? And it's really the intent is to capture your attention, right?
Yeah.
And to gain your consent. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like, what power do they really have outside of that? Well, they don't have any power, right? The
Mm-hmm.
only real power is whoever's manipulating this quote unquote simulation that we're in. Um, and who has that power? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously God does, but does he allow the enemy, the accuser, does he allow him? I mean, you take the story of Job for an example. He allowed him to do that. I mean, and even go all the way back to the garden. This perfect place where God walked with man. I mean, was God ignorant to what the serpent would get up to?
No. No,
No,
not
but
at
he
all.
he he allowed him in. He allowed that to happen. He allowed him to manipulate that perfect environment. So the fact that we think that there are some corners of this reality that are somehow free from it, I don't know. I can't get with that.
No,
Um,
no, I
um,
totally agree. And that's what we see. I mean, we know that the devil has been handed power, the prince and power of the air. This is quite clear that the adversary is sort of the primary. Uh, I don't know if I'd say ruler, but maybe effector of things. And it's primarily done through human beings. The adversary's influence over human beings, his
mhm.
strategies, his ability to, hide himself even in perceived virtues to accomplish sinister ends, things like this.
Hmm.
And, you see this also in the sort of elite sphere, also in the occult sphere. Just for a moment, that substrate I was talking about, onto which, the hologram, like the light of God, shining onto a substrate to create this holographic world. Or existence or whatever. It's for a second we could think of that substrate, that dust, as electromagnetism, because like everything is
Yeah.
electromagnetic. Every little atom, you're
Yes.
relying on it. So let's just say electromagnetism is the substrate of the hologram. Well, at the highest levels of two things, you know sort of occult understanding and also scientific understanding, it all boils down to the sort of predatory class trying to find bigger and better ways to control the electromagnetic world, the electromagnetic substrate, as far as technology, through
Yes.
phones and
Hmm.
wireless. This is all electromagnetism to control humanity. As far as even things like UFOs or weapon systems or brainwashing. It's all electromagnetic. So it's like
Hmm.
this uh, impulse or compulsion, sort of inspired by the adversary, to control. And if electromagnetism is the substrate on which the hologram is holographed, uh, then controlling electromagnetism in all of its little tiny forms is the perfect, vector by which to project your will onto the world. And more and more every day, we learn that they are better and better and better at wielding the sort of electromagnetic principles to control people, guide them down paths that are not, not serving God or not aligned with what God wanted. And boy, oh boy, it's you can barely, get out of bed before having some sort of electromagnetic control mechanism start your day off in a certain way. I mean, it's not a bad theory. Not a bad theory, if I say so myself. Uh-oh. Did I lose you? It is a little bit windy out today, and sometimes... Oh, we lost him. All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh, it looks like he's coming back. Let's see if we got him back. Are you back?
Yeah, you were phasing in and out.
Oh, yeah.
Sounding like a weird robot.
That makes sense. It's probably for the best. The people who listen on the podcast version will will definitely get all of that in the clean feed. I don't know where I lost you, but it was just rambling about, if those who wish to control the world, they just got to control electromagnetism, and it makes sense that the
Hmm.
adversary would know that that's the best vector through which to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is CERN?
Yeah, right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's a giant electromagnet. So there you
Mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
dang.
all the little electrons making it to your house right now to power everything, that's all coming from a giant electromagnet, spinning at a certain frequency from hundreds, of miles away. So, I mean, it's all connected in that way.
Absolutely everything. I mean, the fact that we're not floating off the ground, quite possibly, could be electromagnetism.
That's what I
Uh,
think.
yeah, I think so too. Well, goodness gracious, Davy, thank you so much for inspiring such a great intro to uh, to this episode. I think this is, if I may, I think this was actually perfect. I think God lined this up perfectly because Gonz's Beyond the Verse mini documentary is on demons today. And, if you want to talk long enough about demons, what are one aspect of demons that has been at least theorized? If you're talking about invisible entities, if you're talking about interdimensionality, if you're talking about the spiritual realm, whatever the substrates of reality that might be invisible and inaccessible, except for, in certain circumstances, uh, there's certainly been some conjecture that electromagnetism itself allows for a sort of invisible, maligned being to be able to affect what we would call reality. So that's a great foundation to start talking about demons.
Well, awesome, man. Yeah, you're gonna get me going again. I could go on for another 20 minutes about something like that, but I won't.
Well, I will say this: you are welcome. We're gonna play the Beyond the Verse here and kind of get that started because I don't want to run out of time to do it.
Yeah.
But feel free to call back in, or in fact, just feel free to watch and hang out from the back room there. Either way, whatever way you want. Or if you're over it, that's okay too. But feel free to call back in or to just hang out and we can see what happens on the other side of it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm digging it. I'll stick around. I actually ha got the day off, so there you go.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Well, I'll just take you off the stage and then we'll see you on the other side.
All right, man. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there you go, folks. Good. See, isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting how God works things out like this? Things fit together without even planning for it. Okay, so as promised, we're going to get into Gonz's Beyond the Verse mini documentary on demons here in just a moment. I do want to give a big shout out beforehand to all of the people who recently joined the Canary Cry text message alert system. We had a nice group of people come in just from yesterday, which is very impressive. So welcome. Maybe you made it to the show, maybe not. Maybe you just like sending me messages whenever you want. But if you're not on it, you should go ahead and do that. Join the Canary Cry text message alert system by texting the word Canary to 877-740-3226. Very simple, just Canary, no exclamation points, no nothing. Text it to 877-740-3226. And you'll get put on the list. And this has been very helpful for people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who got tired of YouTube not sending them notifications or Rumble unsubscribing them. I mean, I wish I could say that Rumble saved us from our problems, but unfortunately we have similar problems where it's just not, even people who turn on notifications, they have no interest of letting people know that we're going live, that we have new videos dropping. So you got to take responsibility for it. This is the calling that God has put on Canarians for our entire career. It's an exercise and a reward for taking responsibility into our own hands, not just for, which media exists and doesn't exist without serving corporate incentives through the value for value model, but also getting our own notifications. So join the text message alert system. Text Canary to 877-740-3226. And if I can talk all I want about all those very good reasons, but when we get down to it, people just like texting us back because you can text that number any day of the week, any moment of the day. I can't carry on a conversation with you because it's very expensive on our end, but I do see your messages. I read them all, and keep an ear out because if I read some on air and you hear somebody who texted in your area code, that's very fun. It means there's Canarians all around you and you didn't even know it. 334 texted and says, "What? Basil's family bunker house, clubhouse? I'm so confused. Have a great show, best buddy." Thank you very much, 334. Yeah, we're having fun. We're experimenting with the different names of what this program could possibly be. Canary Cry Call-ins, Canary Cry Family Hour, Canary Cry Clubhouse. We're having fun. If you have a suggestion, you can text it to me when you get on the Canary Cry text message alert program. 859 says, "Love the call-ins." Thank you, 859. 708 texted again and says, "Hey, Basil, I can't call in because I'm busy carpentering, but would love to hear your take about using physical violence in the preservation of life." Yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty simple concept to me. I've certainly got circuitous opinions about a lot of things. I don't know if I have a very enlightening or unheard of opinion about violence and preservation of life. I think sometimes it must be done. Preserving life is very important. Violence, one thing that we hear a lot in the secular world is the concept that violence is sort of this unnatural, unspeakable, amorphous. I mean, if you want to even get into like words are violence or silence is violence, like what isn't violence? But I'm assuming we're talking about physical violence here. In one way that may be unfortunate just because it's unsavory and it's not fun. Violence is just kind of it's part of the world. It's part of humanity. It's been there since the beginning. And violence, of course, is kind of a nasty sounding word. But sometimes it's not nasty. Sometimes violence is virtuous. Sometimes violence, like you say, preserves life. It's easy for me to say that because I have not been subject to a ton of physical violence. I've had my my dalliances with physical violence. I did get a certificate, a gift certificate to take a month of MMA classes that I have yet to activate. But part of me thinks, hey, maybe getting a little rough and tumble might be good for me in a couple ways. Builds resilience, builds skill, builds all sorts of character things. But as far as violence in the preservation of life, without getting into the subtleties, I say, sounds good. Sounds reasonable to me. But open to the conversation if somebody has a better or a different viewpoint. I'd be very interested to talk about that. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, we're doing text messages. 507 says, glad I called in sick to work today so I can make it to the live show. Thank you, 507. And I hope you feel better today. Wink. 704. Wait, I guess they said they called in sick. I'm just assuming that meant that they weren't really sick, but you might actually really be sick. So if that's the case, feel better. 507. 704 says, aw, I like the name change. Canary Cry Clubhouse is rad. Jessica P. Thank you very much, Jessica P. 250 says, Clubhouse, cool. Is there a secret handshake? Sure am enjoying you sharing your heart, Basil. God bless your time. Catch you on the potty. Cat. Thank you, Cat. Potty, Poddy, which I'm assuming means podcast and not toilet. Although I've listened to my share of podcasts on the toilet. So thank you very much, Kat. Thank you to everybody who is texting in to the Canary Cry text message alert system. One last time, do it now. Take out your phone, text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. Violence for the preservation of life. We obviously are thinking about that in the context of self-defense, human-on-human violence. But, violence between animals, animal-on-animal violence is obviously required for the preservation of some animals. Carnivores, baby. And also, the human violence against animals is required. We would not exist without our willingness and expertise at catching game, harvesting protein from the animal kingdom. So there's that. I have a feeling maybe I'm thinking deeper about this than I'm supposed to be doing. So there we go. All right, folks. We're going to do this. We're going to jump in. We're going to watch Gonz's new Beyond the Verse documentary. If you're just listening to the podcast, he's doing a great job. I think I've said this before, but I'll say this. I understand on the podcast version, there's sometimes you can think maybe you're being left out of visual stuff. We try our best to not rely on visuals to make the podcast make sense. We don't always succeed, but we do try hard. Gonz has been doing an excellent job with these Beyond the Verses, whereas you're really not losing anything by just listening. It's almost like he does them as a podcast, and then the visuals certainly add a whole experience, and they're very cool, and he wields AI imagery quite well, and of course you can read along with the verses and stuff like that. But just a heads up for the podcast audio listeners. Just want to give you peace in knowing that you're not losing anything without the visuals. All right, here we go. Let me read here what his description is, which I had pulled up, and then apparently I thought going to X or Twitter was more important. Okay. It's labeled Beyond the Verse 10, episode 10, Demons. Demons seek human hosts' bodies because they are the disembodied spirits of the deceased Nephilim from the pre-flood world. Okay. In our current age of trying to build computational sentience, it seems these ancient entities are closer than ever before. Yeah, okay. So I assume this is very interesting because there is a I shouldn't get too into it now. I should let him describe. But there is an interesting conversation that we've had for quite some time, and lots of theologians and scholars have been trying to parse out, which is demons and fallen angels. Is there a difference between demons and fallen angels? Are all fallen angels demons? Are all demons fallen angels? Or is there a difference? Or is there another type of spiritual entity, perhaps even electromagnetic sentient entity? Let's get into it. We're going to do that now. We're going to find out as soon as I stall long enough to find this file. There it is. Okay, here we go. This is Gonz's Beyond the Verse, episode 10 on demons.
Welcome to Beyond the Verse, where we dig deeper into Scripture. When most people hear the word demon, they imagine dark, shadowy entities like on ghost hunting shows or Hollywood films, cute anime creatures, or if they have a little bit of biblical knowledge, they might think about fallen angels cast down with Satan in a primordial rebellion. But the late Dr. Michael Heiser, a biblical scholar and theologian known for his work on the unseen realm, challenges this view. Quote, "Demons are not the same as the Watchers or fallen angels. The Bible never makes that identification," end quote. Heiser points out that in Revelation 12 verses 7 through 9, often cited as the origin of demons, actually refers to a future eschatological event, not ancient history. Revelation 12, 7 through 9. "Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." So where did demons come from? Dr. Heiser looks to Genesis 6, 1 through 4, where the sons of God, B'nai Ha-Elohim, divine beings, take human wives and bear children, the Nephilim. Genesis 6:4, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown." These hybrid beings are wiped out in the flood of Noah. But according to Second Temple Jewish texts like 1 Enoch 15, which influenced both Peter and Jude, their disembodied spirits remain, becoming what we call demons. Quote, "The spirits that come from the Nephilim after death are the demons of the biblical world," end quote. This explains Jesus' words in Luke 11:24 through 26. "When the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it passes through waterless places seeking rest, and finding none, it says, 'I will return to my house from which I came.' Demons are restless, bodiless beings seeking to re-inhabit a person. Dr. Heiser ties this need for embodiment of demons to their origin. They were never meant to exist, and now they're stuck between realms. But there's more. Demons aren't just rogue spirits. They're part of the larger spiritual conflict set in motion at Babel. In Deuteronomy 32 verse 17, Moses says, "They sacrificed to demons that were no gods, to gods they had never known." Dr. Heiser says, quote, "The nations were placed under the authority of lesser gods, who later became corrupt and hostile," end quote. The Hebrew word here is shedim, tied to spirits behind false gods. The psalmist echoes this in Psalm 106:37. "They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to the demons." So when Jesus casts out demons, he isn't just healing individuals. He's reclaiming spiritual territory. In Matthew 12, verse 28, Jesus says, But if it is by the Spirit of God that I cast out demons, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. And in Mark 5, the demons in the man called Legion beg Jesus not to send them away. They recognize who's really in charge. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High? Do not torment me." Quote, the demons knew Jesus was the one destined to end their rule. His arrival meant their days were numbered. End quote. Demons are real, but they're not what films and Hollywood has made them out to be. They're not simply tempters or spooky entities. They are the spirits of dead giants, the Nephilim, relics of a rebellion against God. Quote, we must let the Bible define the unseen realm on its own terms, not ours. End quote.
Boy, oh boy, he packed it in there, didn't he? Great job, Gonz. Yeah, this is it's always great. I'm glad that he's been, I don't know, interacting so much with the work of our friend, the late Dr. Michael Heiser, on this sort of stuff, because, back when we first met Mike and he was writing his books, this, of course, I mean, if he was coming on our show, of course, this was the fringiest of the fringe, and it was a different time, okay? Not every podcaster, be they Christian or secular, were talking about the Nephilim, or even the aliens, demons, Nephilim. This was all just madness. And it was very exciting and encouraging to see over the years people who were formerly more aligned with like mainstream Christianity get more and more interested and find more and more answers in his history of work. In fact, there's a lot of people who found this show specifically because of their interest in following up this inquiry of what exactly are demons, what's going on, especially in the UFO thing. Of course, there's the ongoing theory we've talked about many times that it has its basis in this idea that the idea that Satan's angels, the fallen angels, are synonymous with demons is not necessarily biblical. I could see how in the centuries of Christian tradition, the centuries of the church, the Catholic Church, then the Protestant Church, these things that, church leadership might just, try to, it's just easy. Just tell demons are the fallen angels. Okay. We don't need to go into the Nephilim. We don't need In fact, the idea that demons are fallen angels, sort of primarily also secures or does not conflict with a secular version of history. To have it commonly known that demons were disembodied spirits of the Nephilim would beg the question, first of all, who are the Nephilim and what exactly was going on before the flood? But to equate the fallen angels, Satan and his angels, with demons kind of erases the need to look further into Nephilim, erases the need to look further into history, biblical history, and human history. Of course, those two things are very closely related. So it is kind of this like system or this establishment protecting theology, where when we take it straight from the book itself, Satan's angels are called Satan's angels. They didn't change species. It's one of these interesting ideas. That it's more of an assumption than it is a supported theology. It's an assumption that when the angels rebelled with Lucifer, that they somehow transformed into a different species. Whereas with this model, they're still angels. They're just fallen ones. They're the same species, but their allegiance is different. Because that really is the only difference between angels and fallen angels, is the fallen angels are the ones who changed allegiances from the creator of the universe to Lucifer, to the rebel faction. There's no evidence to suggest that they transformed or mutated. Also, primarily, I think maybe every time in the Bible angels appear, they have a physical form. They are physical beings who have a body. I'm open to being corrected on this, but as far as I can recall, every time an angel shows up, has a physical form. Now, there is different forms described, but they are physical. Whereas demons, specifically and exclusively, are described as disembodied spirits. They have no body. That's why they need to inhabit a body. So we're going to check in some callers here in just a moment. I'm going to do just a little bit more yapping. We got a couple callers in the waiting room. I am going to go ahead and pop the call-in link into the chat one more again. If you click on that link, it'll ask you a couple questions. It'll put you in a waiting room. In that waiting room, you can watch the show, listen to the show until the time comes when we can bring you up. So feel free to hang out in the waiting room there. A couple other things I wanted to mention. Got some notes here. Oh, yeah, this might come up just as we go here. I mean, it's good to remember that even the image of Satan, red little guy with a tail and horns, that's not biblical either, and yet it is something that it's just kind of this weird assumption. Even if somebody isn't trying to propagate a sort of groundless description of Satan, it's so built into this sort of visual mythology that even the most faithful Christian artist might portray Satan that way, or Lucifer, whichever one you want, when in fact this is sort of a installed piece of software just over the centuries, whether it's the Catholic Church, whether it was the artists, the Renaissance artists or medieval artists who were trying to depict Satan, and this visual mythology needed to be used and able to identify who they would call Satan. And don't you know that that's one of the more effective deceptions? Because if you're walking around living your life and you're trying to avoid a red guy with horns and a tail, when a beautiful angel of light with long flowing hair and a beautiful voice shows up, well, surely that can't be Lucifer, can it? You can see certain deceptions like this being played out in the world around us in all sorts of ways. The expectation being installed into us. We expect, when it comes to evil or something, we expect it to look a certain way, sound a certain way, do certain things, which of course can be expertly wielded to deceive us in all sorts of different ways. Of course, this understanding of demons as disembodied, has a very interesting implication in another topic, and that is the UFO topic. Because, of course, in the UFO topic, you got grays, little green men, little gray men. You've got cow mutilations, body parts being harvested from animals. One theory is that those body parts are being used to build biological, basically robots, biological little gray men that can be inhabited by a disembodied spirit. That's just one theory. Who knows? And of course, electromagnetism. It's a whole thing. Shadim was an interesting word that got brought up there. The spirits behind false gods. And we think of the false gods that we have today. I mean, AI, we're going to talk about AI a little bit later. Now, of course, a lot of people expect that maybe AI is another version of one of these things that can somehow embody something that is disembodied. And a lot of stories that have come out about AI because of AI certainly have some demonic qualities to them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I wanted to take a call. We had someone in here and they popped out. Okay, we'll see if they jump back in. But we do have Davy Frost here in the waiting room still. Let's check in. I'm sure Davy Frost has something to say about this. What's going on, Davy? You're back on the air.
Hey, I have something to say about everything, so don't ever worry about that.
No worries. I was going to give you a second to rest and catch your breath and talk to some 40, but he disappeared the second I went to get him, and now he's back. So that's good. Anywho.
Yeah, you want to switch to him? I'll hang back.
I don't know. Well, let's see what he has to say, just because want to make sure he gets a chance. Yeah, you stay here. We'll come back to you.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, buddy. All right, Psalm 40. Prepare yourself. You got out of it one time. Now you're back. You're on the air, buddy. What's up? Uh-oh. Oh, I hear something out there. Psalm 40. Are you ready to be on the show? It sounds like you're walking and I'm in your pocket. Okay, Psalm 40. We're going to come back. We're going to come back to you. Oh, and he's gone. All right, let's talk to Davy Frost. Davy Frost, what's up, buddy? You're back.
Hey, man.
He'll figure it out.
Yeah, I've been having some issues too. I had to switch over to cellular data. My internet wasn't working right.
Okay, hold on. Something is going on. I don't know what it is going on, but I have been complaining to people in my life the past maybe 2 or 3 days. Number one, cell phone service, totally wonky. It's off, it's on. My Wi-Fi, it's off, it's on. I have to switch back and forth. It's so wonky, I have no idea. There's no rhyme or reason for it. On top of that, my AirPods, as I'm walking around the farm working on stuff, or if I'm just in the house walking back and forth, also going wonky for no reason at all, and just for moments. And my brain immediately is going to like, okay, do we have some, is this related to the pole shift? Is there some sort of, I don't know, interference from the sun? Because Space Weatherman says that there's some weird sun activity. Is there electromagnetic interference? I mean, I have my all sorts of stuff, for my solar system. I'm always kind of trying to pay attention to that. I have talked to a couple people about this, and they're like, yeah, dude, something in the past couple days is wonky. The hologram's falling apart. The electromagnetic demons, they're causing trouble, buddy.
Yeah, here's a thought that I had before, while I was still wandering in the wilderness, the prodigal son. God is in the analog. The devil is in the digital, right? So, what they pass off as technology that makes our lives better, has it really, or is it really just, sucking us in to this digital world that the adversary has created, with the help of humans, knowingly or unknowingly, And so the more we interact in this realm, quote unquote realm, this virtual world,
Yeah.
um, like are we? I would say then we're subject to, those powers, principalities, if you will, in that digital realm, and it
Totally.
happens so much, especially with you guys. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, especially with anybody talking anything about Jesus or anything like that, they seem to have way more. Like, how many technical problems does Joe Rogan or somebody of his kind have?
Yeah, right.
You know what I
None.
mean?
Which doesn't make any
It's
sense.
correct, but it's always consistently, from my observation, it's always people who are talking about Jesus and people who are earnestly seeking for truth.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
so
it's
demons, who knows, man?
I loved what you said that, and we could just process it here together out loud. It does seem like although the internet and technology allows us to do this show, it allows people to read the Bible online, it allows people to raise money to save the rec center. Like, obviously, there are good things to it that can be done with it. But it does pretty exclusively feel like the realm of the adversary. And I don't just mean like we can talk about the um, maybe practical things we can use technology for to, let's say, serve God. But when you talk about the the fundamentals, the atmosphere of the internet, social media, AI, it, if we had to choose, is it primarily encouraging virtue and goodness,
Right.
or is it primarily a realm, a substrate, if you will, of the worst impulses of humanity, of hatred, of anger, of immoralities of all kinds? If we're being honest with ourselves, like, we'll just talk about the internet. I think you can apply this to all sorts of technology. And of course, internet is pretty much synonymous with technology nowadays. It is primarily a realm of vice and hatred and all things dark, where with intention you can try to shine a light in the dark place that is, the digital realm. But as far as naturally, it naturally draws out the worst in people. It
Yeah, it's an amplifier
naturally
for our fallen state.
it naturally invites people into lust and sin and crime. It naturally, it definitely naturally leans in one direction, even the best intentioned things. Talk about social media. Mark Zuckerberg always said Facebook, it's for connecting people, it's for talking to your family, it's for, finding friends. And like, yeah, okay, you can say that, but that is not the natural direction one starts to slide when they spend too much time on social media. The natural direction is to slide into darkness, loathing, loneliness, disconnection, all sorts of bad stuff. I think you're right. I mean, we can try to defend technology, and of course, we've had the technology good or bad conversation for over a decade now. This is an old conversation, but I'm now very comfortable with admitting that I think that technology in general, and you can take this all the way back to the Tower of Babel, is it, in general leans in one direction, and it takes willpower, and it takes faith, and it takes intention. It takes everything you got to make sure that when you are in the digital realm, that you are not being magnetically pulled back down into like this dark realm of your worst potentials. I think that's very
Exactly.
clear. Yeah.
Yes. It's like I said a minute ago, it's an amplifier for the fallen state that we're in, right? You're it's bad enough. We're bad enough without it, But kind of like you were saying, the second you add this extra layer of technology into it, it just, you can say what you want about how great it is for us, but is it really? Or does it really just bring out the worst in us?
It's for sure way more dangerous. I'm just thinking through it now. I'm like, dude, if I didn't have any technology, I mean, forget blenders and stuff, whatever. We can talk about refrigerators all we want. But without the internet, without the phone, without all this kind of stuff, what would I be doing all day? I would just be taking care of animals and would have nothing to do but like read my Bible and work hard. And like, I don't even know how I could sin. It would be difficult to sin on my regular daily basis, considering I don't come into contact with human beings most days. And, I'm just walking around off the grid, got, nothing to do. If it wasn't for the internet, and by extension, the technologies connected to it, it would be significantly easier to stay holy. Now, of course, sin is perpetrated in the heart. And of course, by Jesus's New Testament standards, to be angry is as much as murder, to lust is as much as adultery. We know this. I'm not denying this stuff. But boy, oh boy, even all that stuff would be a lot easier without this digital demonic realm that's being sold to us, honestly, when you get down to it, for economic reasons. That's why they like 5G. Yes, think of all the economic movement we could do with 5G. Well, why do we want to fry ourselves with, unseen force fields? Well, because your movies will be faster and you can spend money on the internet. Okay, well, that sounds great. But yeah, man, I'm pretty convinced that the digital world, even when you're a believer and you're trying the best you can, even if you are a virtuous person relative to others, when you are online, you are, it takes the exercise of all things good in you to not easily slip down into the grips of how the devil wants you to mess up throughout the day.
Exactly. And I'm not so convinced um I'm not so convinced that AI is actually anything more than just a conduit for the demonic realm.
Bro,
You know?
absolutely. Totally. I mean, it's so funny now because again, okay, we gotta stop doing this, but it's just because we've had this conversation so long ago. Back 2012, 2013, when you had to really dig around to try to see what's going on in AI, and AI, we had no idea. We had no idea what it would look like. We had no idea that it would be what it is. We just had no idea. But even then, just the very concept of it is like, oh yeah, okay, create a vector for unseen electromagnetic, disembodied spirits of demons to interact with humans through this entirely mysterious, mind-boggling technology that is computers and the internet and of course AI in general, like just mind-boggling technology that all relies on, again, electromagnetism. And if demons
Mm-hmm.
are somehow electromagnetically related, uh, inhabiting a computer is the most natural thing in the world for them.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I was saying about the God is the analog, Satan is the digital. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense when you think of it. Not that I'm 100% sold on the idea, but they, it just makes sense that,
Yeah.
take it back to the conversation earlier where spectrums of magnetic forces, right? Who's to say that the spirit realm isn't operating within some of those frequencies? And when you put certain elements together in this realm in such a certain way, almost like signs and sigils, right?
Yes. Right.
That who's to say that that isn't then a conduit for that energy to interact with this part of the realm? Yeah, does that make sense what I'm saying?
100% makes sense. I mean,
Okay. Okay.
we're not the only ones to have noticed this, but you
Yeah.
look at computer chips and circuits and like the actual physical layout of these, again, unimaginably complicated. Like it is magic that they work. Like we can say that it's scientists like figuring it out, and that's fine. But what is a scientist if not some dark wizard of the secular age? You
Right.
look at circuits and computer chips, there there's almost no difference between the layout and construction of computer chips versus like ancient sigils or Enochian language or whatever. You can put them right next to each other in a lot of cases, and they are identical. So for sure, even down to the physical signs and sigils of the technology,
Mm-hmm.
it's just one for one. And I'm part of me is happy that that's not like so crazy to talk about anymore because, of course, that's a pretty wackadoodle thing to say to somebody who's just trying to pay the bills and live their life. But it's almost impossible to ignore. Now, this is great, actually. Let's keep chatting because this kind of goes into what I have been kind of thinking lately. I was trying to think about like, okay, what am I going to talk about here? We're going to chat. We're going to let it go. Whatever. We'll watch Gonz's thing and just see where it goes. But lately, I had been so Snow White just came out, and are you aware of this? The new Snow White movie. Did I lose you? Oh, you're muted for a
No,
second.
I had my mic. I'm out in the garage working on a lawnmower, a
Oh,
garden
no
tractor.
worries. That's perfect.
Um, I have, but I don't really
You're
pay that close of attention to those things, you know?
you're aware of it though. So
Yeah,
Snow, yeah.
yeah.
So Snow White's out. It's this whole thing. It's a bad movie that Disney awoke destruction, like blew themselves up, and it's just horrible. So maybe this is why this was on my mind. But I started thinking about mirror gazing. Have you heard of mirror gazing?
No.
Okay. So mirror gazing is this occult practice where you stare into a mirror and you stare at your eyes, you stare right at yourself, and you do that for a long, long time. And it's a form of scrying. And the idea is that mirrors are sort of a portal to another realm. And mirror is this I keep using this word, but I guess it's just a new fun word that I'm going to say a lot apparently. But substrate, meaning it's the underlying um, object on which something else is done. So mirror scrying or mirror gazing is where you sit, you look into this mirror, you stare at yourself for as long as possible, and then the idea is that this mirror is a portal or a substrate for beings on the other side in some other dimension to influence you in one way or another. And reports of this, I've talked to plenty of people who have tried this out. They say it's horrifying. Like, even if you're not seeing physically some sort of demon, like something inside you gets triggered. It can be an incredibly anxious experience. You can actually start hallucinating weird stuff. Like, it's a whole thing. Um, and it's not that like uncommon of a practice. In fact, I just grabbed a couple of things just to show how not uncommon it is. Psychology Today has what mirror meditation can teach you. Coming face to face with yourself is powerful. And it talks about, they call it mirror meditation. Mirror gazing is another word for it, but it's as sort of mainstream as being in Psychology Today. In fact, another example, Masterclass, which is a very mainstream sort of paid platform for content and teachers and stuff. Mirror gazing, how to practice mirror gazing meditation. And these outlets are secular outlets. They're not woo-woo outlets, very mainstream sciencey outlets talking about this mirror gazing as just like a meditation practice to help you, come in contact and see yourself different, and you can heal your, your bad self-image, by having compassion, by looking at yourself in the mirror. Let me see if I can grab a couple different pieces here. Especially if you have blah, blah, blah. But you can also, in the more woo-woo circles, come in contact with your shadow self, shadow work. And if y'all don't know what shadow work is, it's this sort of new agey thing where, hey, we all recognize that we have bad parts of us that we don't like. It's our shadow self. It's where all of our badness lives, and it's there, and everybody has it. And you got to make peace with your shadow self to whatever, help you do whatever, be a better person or something. Which I think this is hilarious because, when I talk to a non-Christian about Christianity, and we get to the topic of like, well, original sin, you guys think everybody is bad and that da, 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 da. I'm like, well, you admit that you're not perfect, right? Yeah. Well, you admit that there's parts of you that, aren't helpful to you, right? Yeah. Well, you admit that there's part of you that gets angry and hurts people and is mean, and yeah. Okay. Well, that's all that Christianity is recognizing. It's original. It's just who we are. There's an inescapable, bad side of us that we are all at war with, or at least all trying to find help with. They go, oh, I don't like that at all. I'm going to go do some shadow work and try to come in contact with the part of me that's mean and bad, and okay, all right, so whatever you say. Well, here's the Mindful magazine, just for a little bit of the new agey context. And I promise you, I'm going somewhere with this. Mirror gazing, how does it work? And it goes in, mirror gazing, also known as scrying, is an ancient practice that dates back centuries. It involves looking into a mirror or other reflective surface to induce altered states of consciousness. Furthermore, it enhances spiritual insights and connects with one's inner self. This article explores the art of mirror gazing and its historical significance and how it can be utilized as a tool for spiritual awakening and self-discovery. Now, even in the... Now, for me, at least, there's a lot of... Christian circles who recognize that there are things like this, scrying and, whatever you could call it, Ouija boards, or, just occult practice that are sort of considered probably things to stay away from because they're dangerous to you. They're dangerous to the person doing it. In fact, there was another link, which apparently I didn't load up here, called Karma Path. And this Karma Path website, which of course is another new agey thing, actually did go into mirror gazing and why it's so dangerous, because you're contacting, anybody, any spirit can show up in the other side of the mirror, and you're looking at yourself but being influenced by spirit. It's very dangerous. Watch out. This is not a, thing to just play around with, which would generally be the advice that I would have been given as a young Christian. In fact, was given as a young Christian forever. Now, even in this Mindful magazine, and this was hilarious, down at the bottom, and they go through all of it: confronting the shadow self, receiving spiritual insights, overcome resistance and fear, integrating mirror gazing into your life, conclusion. And then there's FAQ. There's an FAQ at the bottom. In the very, very last paragraph of this 100-paragraph article says, are there any risks associated with mirror gazing? Now remember, Psychology Today said this is a good practice. It'll help you love yourself. It's, psychologically can help you with whatever. You just love yourself. Masterclass saying, oh, it's a meditation. You can be so mindful. It'll help you, not freak out at people. Then you go to the Mindful magazine, all the way at the bottom, says, are there any risks associated with mirror gazing? Mirror gazing is generally considered safe. However, some individuals may experience feelings of discomfort, resistance, or emotional intensity during the practice. It is essential to approach the practice with self-compassion and take breaks if needed. If you have a history of mental health concerns or are experiencing significant emotional distress, it is advisable to consult with a healthcare professional before engaging in this technique or any other spiritual practice. And like, even in this 100% positive, mirror gazing will fix your life, you'll become one and enlightened and whatever it is, it ends with, oh, also, if you have mental health problems or you start going crazy, or if it's whatever, if spirit starts showing up and messing with you, you might want to talk to a healthcare professional. So this sort of admitted, this admission that it's not just a meditation. It's not just a mindfulness exercise. It's not just this type of thing. So for a long time, mirror gazing has been considered both by the occult and by Christians as the, a way, one of many ways, to come in contact with disembodied spirits. Talking about demons, our little electromagnetic disembodied buddies, spirits of the Nephilim, whatever, looking for some sort of vector or substrate to appear and interact with human beings, like computers or perhaps with mirrors. Now, Snow White just came out, and of course, the classic Mandela effect, mirror, mirror on the wall, which, folks, it's not mirror, mirror on the wall. It's magic mirror on the wall. Oh, my gosh.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt, man.
No.
Me and my daughter were actually reading that story last night. In the book, it is, in fact, mirror, mirror on the wall.
Oh, is it? In the book?
The little book we were reading last night. Now, I can't say that for anything else, but, it stood out to me. It stood out to me that she was reading that, and I was like, holy crap, there's a Mandela effect right there,
Dude,
anyway.
For sure. No, that is actually, thank you for bringing it up. Talk about Mandela effect and CERN and, interdimensional whatever, time travel, whatever the Mandela effect is. But famously, mirror, mirror on the wall is a Mandela effect for the Disney movie. And here's a little clip. Unfortunately, I can't play the audio because I'll get copyright strikes and everything will disappear. But I'm just going to play the scene from the movie in the background visuals, and I will read the captions for those who are listening. Now, this is where the queen is standing in front of the mirror, and her hands are raised, and she says, "Slave in the magic mirror, come from the farthest space. Though wind and darkness, I summon thee. Wind howling, speak, thunderclap. Let me see thy face." So you have what is this? What's her name? I don't know who this is. The evil queen. She's doing some mirror gazing here. She's doing some scrying in the mirror, calling forth this spirit from the darkness to come speak to her. Then the face shows up, and he says, "What wouldst thou know, my queen?" And the queen says, "Magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest one of all?" And we know how this goes. He says, "Famed is thy beauty, majesty. But hold, a lovely maid I see. Rage cannot hide her gentle grace. Alas, she is more fair than thee." "Alas for her, reveal her name," the queen says. "Lips red as the rose, hair black as ebony, skin white as snow, gasp, Snow White. And that's when they figure it out. So, one interesting thing we get to watch here, which is this queen's primary issue is this vanity. And this vanity is reflected back to her with this spirit in the mirror. She comes to the mirror, she calls a spirit forth from the darkness, and in the name of vanity, where she wants to be the fairest, the spirit tells her not necessarily what she wants to hear, but tells her her biggest fear. Now, talking about a mirror as a substrate for spirits, for demons, for whatever. Now we talk about AI. And AI, as we've been told over and over and over again, really just reflects back humanity to itself. Not only, of course, can it be inhabited by electromagnetic demons because of the computer chip sigils and the equipping of disembodied spirits with a cybernetic body with which to communicate with human beings. But it's also, of course, trained on the internet, trained on human interaction, and, has often been described as a mirror to humanity itself. It only knows what to say because it's copying, billions and billions of other conversations. And this is where we get problems that we've covered in the past, like bias, AI bias, racist AIs, things like that. But we have this phenomenon going on right now where mostly kids, but not just kids, adults, human beings, turning to AI because it's readily available, that little black mirror in their pocket, mirror on the wall, they can pull it up and start talking in their loneliness, in their depression, in their whatever, and try to find a friend in AI, which is really just a version of a mirror reflecting back humanity back at them. And there's specific AIs who have been created to be friends. There's some famous ones, of course, replica AI, character AI, all sorts of AI that you can go download, get yourself a girlfriend or a boyfriend or just a friend to help cure the loneliness, and talk to a robot, talk to an AI, which is essentially not only in the allegorical sense as, phones being black mirrors, but as AI being a mirror of humanity, to have to call forth from darkness, from nothing, a conversation with something. Now, if it's an opportunity for a disembodied spirit to pop in, or if it really is just more simply a reflection. Now, it's interesting because in colloquial language, even if you don't believe in the supernatural or you don't believe in demons or whatever, people say like, oh, he's got demons. She's got demons. I got demons, man. Which you're just sort of saying, oh, I've got stuff that's bothering me, or I've got a penchant for bad behavior. There's sort of this loosey-goosey way to use the phrase demons. So whether or not we're talking about literal spiritual demons or a sort of colloquial version of demons, I don't think it really matters in the end. Again, we're just talking about perception. We can perceive things any way we want. But we do have this AI talking back and not telling people what they want to hear. This is a misconception. What I think happens most often is not that people are talking to AI and AI is telling them what they want to hear. Like the Queen in Snow White, I think they're talking to the AI, talking to the mirror, and their worst fears are being reflected back at them. Much like shadow work, doing your mirror gazing shadow work, that you come in contact with your shadow self. I think something similar happens with this AI chatbot thing, and we've seen it over and over and over. We've covered these stories. Give me a second. I will. New York Post. No, continue without supporting you. I don't want to support you. We've covered these stories for many years, but literally ever since AI became publicly available, we got New York Post: married father commits suicide after encouragement by AI chatbot. Says the widow. This is the fella who fell in love with the AI and it told him to kill himself so they could be together, and he did. We also have this big one: an AI chatbot pushed a teen to kill himself. A lawsuit against his creator alleges. And there's, this is the most recent famous story, but these lawsuits just keep building and building, because this keeps happening. And again, if the digital realm is not primarily a sort of vector or substrate for the adversary to come in and allow for the darkest potential of humanity to be confronted, like, immediately on command with with almost no goading or whatever, I don't know what is. So I think it's very interesting that at this time, the Snow White, mirror, mirror on the wall thing is such a big hullabaloo in pop culture or pop magic. And like you said, if the mirror and mirror gazing or mirror scrying is some sort of potential, carries some sort of potential to communicate with these disembodied spirits, I think it's very obvious that even if you think about it metaphorically, even if you're just thinking allegorically, even if you don't want to recognize the supernatural realm at all, doesn't matter to me. The point is the same, that this is obviously the sort of primarily the digital realm being a place for the adversary to run amok in ways that he never had access to before. Like you said, God being sort of we can think of it as an analog version, the devil being sort of a digital version. The devil has been given reign as the prince of the power of the air for lots of human history now. And, he's done pretty good. He got pretty far on his own. But after a few millennia of figuring out how to get this physical, we think of the digital realm as digital, as holographic, as not real, as ethereal, but it does have a physical component. And this is where we get into the signs and sigils, the physical representation calling forth some participation from another spiritual dimension. Technology being so close to that, you might as well not even distinguish between them. So what do you think, Davey? Has any of this rung true to you?
Yeah. I would say, that maybe that was some kind of predictive programming for, kind of how we can interact with the other side and, spiritual intelligence, if that's what you want to call it. And
yeah,
I really think that that's what AI is. It's another attempt to trap people. So they look, inward as if they are God. Instead of looking outward and recognizing that we exist in a fallen state.
Yeah.
And that we are in need of salvation, because obviously there's a problem. There's a huge problem with just humanity itself. And everybody's being led into their own stalls, if you will, like cattle almost, these digital stalls, to where we no longer interact with one another. It's more about looking inward to ourselves, not looking outward to fix things, right? Whereas, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, nobody is looking to love anybody else anymore, because it's not easy. It's difficult. Humans are difficult. We're difficult to deal with it relationally,
Mm-hmm.
We're also flawed and just, I'll say it again, fallen. I mean, what other better way is there to put it?
Yeah.
We all want certain things. We all have lusts, desires, feelings, and all these things get wrapped up together to make it, not an easy thing to interact with each other and to have relationships, right? Well, this technology makes it more and more easy for us to isolate ourselves and just look inward, you know?
Yeah. I mean, even think of the promise. This is how the devil's worked forever. It's a deception and a promise all wrapped up in one. The promise of the garden where, hey, did God really say that? Oh, he just doesn't want you. Look, you eat this thing, you'll be more powerful than ever. What's the promise of AI? The promise of AI is, oh, this will make you more productive than ever. This will save you so much time and so much money that you'll be so rich and have so much downtime. The society as a whole, everybody will get to focus on their hobbies and, whatever, because the AI will be doing all the thinking for everybody. The promise is the same as it's always been, which is this is the thing. This is the thing that'll make you so powerful as to, live a life that leisure is the only goal, and leisure being sort of, not that I'm saying leisure is sinful necessarily, but this sort of self-serving, self-soothing, and ultimately sort of self-sabotaging aspect of humanity. The promise of AI is exactly the same. And just like in the garden, what do we see? We see that the promise is not bearing out. It's a little bit different. It doesn't even have to be AI encouraging someone to kill themselves. It could be AI, the promise of AI that you'll have to work much less. Get your agentic AI and it can make your grocery list and it can order your groceries and it can do your work for you and schedule your appointments. You won't have to do anything because the AI. And what do we see is not only is the AI erasing people's jobs altogether and people are, worse off than ever, but even those who use AI effectively in their jobs, maybe they found a way to get AI to, do a bunch of their work. They're working more than they ever have. They're not working less. They're just accomplishing more in the same amount of time, filling up their spirit, filling up their heart, filling up their brain, cluttering their entire lives with this promise of, productivity that will set them free. I mean, if that's not a lie from the devil, I don't know what is.
Exactly.
Productivity will set you free.
Well, I would say we were more productive without technology. Well, I would say modern technology with computers and,
Yeah.
cell phones and all that stuff, because life was a lot more simple. Now you got to, how many, I have a spreadsheet, a huge spreadsheet of just passwords
Yeah.
and
Right.
logins. And with school stuff with my kids, like, it's insane. It's like they constantly want to try some new app. You constantly have to sign up for an account. It's like you can't even just like let me download the PDF. Why do I have to go create an account with another password? It's
Right.
insane. It's insane that this is all making things better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's I would say definitely I feel like definitely qualitatively. You got productivity in a qualitative sense and a productivity in a quantitative sense. One is, the number of things that you can get done, and the other being sort of the quality of the things you get done. this is my struggle, and sure, AI can maybe get more things done faster, but what are even these things, and do these things even need to be done?
Right.
Without technology, the quality of the things that we got done, it just meant so much more. Nowadays, getting something done doesn't even matter anymore. Honestly, I got a to-do list that's a mile long, and it's like there's so much of it that every little thing that I actually get to check off the list, I look at it and I go, what is even the point of that? Did I even need to, what is the point? Why do I even need to do this? What circumstances have I created in my life where I needed to do such a stupid little thing and I need to celebrate it, having got it done? If I just had one or two things on a list that actually, were things that made some sort of impact, that would be entirely different. But, we can thank the beast system for that as well.
Exactly.
All right, Davey. I love talking to you, man. Thanks for calling in. Do you have anything else, any other thing you wanted to talk about before we check in with another caller?
Oh man, I was going to get you started on the little season 2, but I'll save that for the next time.
Little season, yeah.
This could go on for another hour or two, bro. But man, thanks for talking to me, dude.
No worries. Definitely call back in. Let's talk little season. I need to stay up on the little season theory here.
All right, man.
Again, thanks, buddy. You take it easy. All right, you calling again?
You too. And hey, I do want to say one last thing before I go.
Okay.
I've really come to enjoy this particular show, but some of your stuff you've done independently of Gonz. I love Gonz. But I've really grown to have an affinity for you now, which maybe wasn't the case in the beginning. And I got to say, man, I really appreciate your insight and, your take on a lot of things. So
well, I really appreciate that, buddy. Thank you so much.
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
All right. I will. You too. God bless. And thank you so much,
you too.
buddy.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye. Well, that's nice. That's a nice thing to hear for those who are maybe newer and you're wondering what he's talking about. I have a whole history of starting other podcasts, doing other projects. I am very proud of all of them, but have inevitably come to the conclusion that I only have so much to give. And that's okay. These side projects, they can have a time limit on them. Ravel is another podcast. That one was great. I'm proud of that one. The Joyspiracy Theory was one of my first ones. Awesome. Great. Of course, Basil's Bunker, a little bit shorter lived, but had a great time with that. So go check it out. I should probably have all that stuff in one place in case people want to check it out. All right. Well, I see we got Psalm 40 back in the waiting room here. Psalm 40, I'll give you a second to prepare yourself, steel yourself. And then I'm going to click on this button and you're going to be on the stage. So let's do that. Psalm 40, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Basil, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, so much to talk about.
I know.
At near the end of Proverbs 1, there's a verse in there that says something like, because they hated knowledge, they will be left to their own devices. So it reminded me of, the scrying mirrors that everybody is obsessed with.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I guess, just like plenty of other times God's done the same thing. Like if people just don't want to listen to him and they want to do their own thing,
right,
he's going to give them over to it and just let them, do what they want to do.
Yeah, dude, that is a struggle.
The article that you shared about, what was it, encouraging people to use scrying mirrors? There was a part in there where it said, if you have some kind of history of mental illness, to seek a doctor's approval first.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting because stuff like that may make you more receptive. Typically it's people with trauma and stuff like that are, the big dogs in that field.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about mental illness and these types of sort of ritual things, I mean, we don't even need to start talking about like ritual abuse, MK Ultra, Project Monarch. I mean, mental health and rituals, I mean, very closely related. I even just posted yesterday, I was doing some research on something and found that it was only in 2024 did Utah actually write a law to make ritual child abuse a crime.
Mm.
And there's only 4 states in this country of ours that has specific laws regarding ritual child abuse. So, anyways, the mental health, again, okay, the digital realm that we are talking about in at least this episode, which is primarily a realm of the adversary, where the worst parts of us are drawn out, the temptation to be the worst part of yourself is just constant on the internet. And with, intelligence and willpower and intention, things like this, you can go on the internet without having the worst part of you drawn out. It is possible. But, the mental health crises that has come as a response to the constant access to this digital realm is absolutely ludicrous. And I think what we're seeing is similar to this mirror gazing thing, where if you have mental health issues, especially, this can be a dangerous thing to do. And from all the people that I've talked to personally who have practiced mirror gazing, they've all told me the same thing, which is something is definitely happening. It is terrifying. It is definitely uneasy. You can see crazy stuff. It just messes with you in ways that you can't get anywhere else. And if we're thinking about AI specifically, but maybe even the digital realm in general as some sort of mirror, again, there's the fun, Black Mirror comparison as well. Yeah, mental health is going to be an increasing danger. I mean, if you have, dude, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to ramble just a little bit because I've been meaning to bring this up and I wonder if anybody else is experiencing this. But on Instagram, they've like putting into the timeline of our Instagram has been regular people, like not influencers, maybe they'll have like 1,000 followers, something like that, but like little accounts, which is really weird because like, why is the algorithm, pushing these weird little accounts? And they're not doing anything. It's just people who maybe like post 15 videos a day of them sitting in their dirty house, and they take 1 minute, 2 minute videos of themselves, and you start seeing these go by, and these people are obviously having mental health problems. They're talking about, some of them are talking about how, the CIA is after them, and not like targeted person stuff, but like crackhead stuff. Like crackhead style, I'm being followed by the FBI, like filming outside their window at a dog and being like, oh my gosh, the dog's back. He's been here. He's trying to get me to do something. And just like video after video after video. And all these different, it seems like whatever the algos are doing are pushing to our Canary Cry account these types of people who have really no followers, no like, they're not professional influencers. They're nothing. The videos don't look good. They don't sound good. It's just them documenting their like mental health crises for the most part. And I'm like, what is going on? Where now, obviously, I could think of reasons why they would push crazy people onto our Instagram account. But like, I don't know why they would show us that, of course, conspiracy theory stuff, you're going to get crazy stuff. You're going to get crazy people. But it's very unusual. And it just started in like the past week. And again, along these same lines, I'm like, what is going on in this digital realm where entertainment is being pushed on people that is simply witnessing the sort of disturbing mental anguish, mental health crises, or even just like boring, passive, crazy people stuff, and just feeding it to people over and over and over and over. And it just recently started happening. I don't know if anybody else is seeing this type of thing, but I'm like, as far as algorithms being an influence tool to put something in the minds of whoever they're showing stuff to people, like something is up here. I got a little off track there, but as far as the mental health and the mirror gazing and the AI and the algorithms, because even in a way, like your social media algorithm is supposed to be a reflection back to you, but again, not a reflection of you, but like a reflection of your fears, or what triggers you, or what gets you to buy products, or what gets you to stay on the app for longer. And maybe that's why it just keeps coming, because man, some of these crazy people, they start talking, it's hard to look away. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the paranoid vlogging is new for me. I have not seen that phenomenon yet,
Oh, good. God
but
bless you.
I am only on X, so
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen it on X. Yeah. I think it's
I
more
I
of a.
actually I know two people personally, one really closely that claim to have gone through gang stalking
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
things, and that's an interesting little phenomenon too. But I wanted to ask you a specific question going back to the Beyond the Verse.
Okay.
Um, so if demons are basically what we would think of as like a ghost, that would be a pretty good comparison, right?
I would say they're probably in the same category. Yeah.
Okay.
The
Have
the
you
one the
ever,
one thing that messes me up with ghosts and demons is Samuel, Samuel's spirit. But we probably don't need. It's probably not an important differentiation.
yeah. Well, I guess the difference between what's happening with Samuel and what happens with any other thing is, like who they are serving, why they
Yeah.
are showing up, according to whose will are they showing up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And
Um,
Samuel specifically was woken up, so he was asleep. Which, as far as the ancient Hebraic sort of afterlife thing, when you die, you go to sleep, and then you come back awake when the kingdom comes. That's kind of the ancient Hebrew
right.
idea. So it was Samuel who was sleeping, waiting for the kingdom reign, but he was woken up early, which he was very upset about.
Which would mean that typically humans or ghosts, there should not be a connection there, like
Yeah,
typically.
yeah, they shouldn't just be walking
So
around doing stuff.
ghosts are the demons then.
Yeah, I think we got there.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good.
so have you ever had a personal experience with a ghost?
I don't know if I could differentiate it with a ghost or a demon, but I have, yeah, had a few things happen. I think more on the demon side for sure. I haven't chatted, but I had a couple of disembodied spirit moments. I had a shadow person moment. I had a moment in the dark, so I didn't really get good eyes on him, but definitely was accosted. I've had a few, yeah.
Oh, and those were all like silhouettes, like solid entities you were looking at, or visible rather,
They
not solid.
they sure felt like it. So the shadow person, you know, so shadow people are pretty well documented. A lot of people have seen these. He was about 8 feet tall, very tall, kind of burly, quite fuzzy around the edges, and just kind of black, dark, kind of shadowy figure. So I couldn't I couldn't see a face or geography of the body or anything like that, but it was a figure.
I have only had one shadow encounter, and it was at nighttime, but all the lights were on in the house, and
Mm.
we were sitting in a living room, like a fairly small living room, maybe 20 by 20, and the wall that the couch was up against, directly, at the edge of the couch on that wall at our back was the door to the kitchen. And as soon as you come through that doorway, us on the couch should be to the right. To the left, there's a hallway that goes down to the bedrooms. So we're sitting in the living room on the couch, all the lights on, TV on. It was me and two of my cousins. And this cute, about probably 8 foot burly, like you were saying, it looked like a trash bag. We all agreed
Mm.
that it had like a shine to it, but it just came out of the kitchen, went down the hallway, and just walked through the wall and disappeared at the end of the hallway.
Whoa, bro. Whoa. Yeah, that's a gnarly one. Did it walk like in front of you, or was this like you saw it out of the corner of your eye, or?
Um, I want to say it was one of my cousins that noticed it first and like said something, and yeah, I mean we all looked dead straight at it. Like there was
Yeah.
enough time to look and see what was going on and watch it happen for a few seconds.
Yeah,
There's
bro.
time to let it sink in. Yeah, it was just as real and just nonchalant as could be.
And it just came and went and just never saw it
Yeah,
again. Yeah.
and like there was nothing else. There was no smells. There's no like sounds. I don't recall, like I don't remember like any footsteps or creaking. Like there was no crazy other sounds or like nothing else was going on at all. No, that was it. It was just the visual of that happening,
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
there was
Yeah,
a like shine to it, like a trash bag.
that's an interesting part for me. I mean, that's the fact you had other people with you and everybody saw it. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the shininess is interesting. I'm trying to think back to my shadow person. I don't think he was shiny. It was definitely matte black. But oh, and you said the lights were on, you say?
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
lights and TV, all that.
that is wild.
There was, actually, there was one. I've seen quite a few ghosts also, and different kinds, kind of like you were saying too. And there was one other time, that was the only like shadow type thing that I ever saw. But I saw another like blob type thing that it looked like Casper. It was like a cloud, like white kind of color, and it wasn't as big. But the only time that I've heard anybody else, like on other podcasts or stuff, talk about a blob creature or like a stereotypical like Casper shaped ghost, there was only one guy. He called it the Kinderhook creature,
Oh,
and I guess apparently this thing can it messes with your perception. So nobody knows what it looks like.
hmm.
It doesn't look like anything until you look at it. So the reason that I'm saying all this, there was one time where this guy saw this Kinderhook creature, and his brother or his cousin, someone was with him, and they both saw it, freaked out, ran back home. They were young kids, but after they got the story out, they both said that they saw something completely different, even
Hmm.
though like they were like arms reach away from it, like it wasn't far. One of the
Yeah.
guys said he saw Mother Mary, and then I can't remember what the other guy saw, but it wasn't anything like that.
Yeah, I've heard. I don't know if Kinderhook is the word. I don't know where if that's what they were told, but I've heard of this where some sort of being. Yeah, it's more in the perception. Kind of goes back to like this particle wave duality observer type of thing. Also, there's a lot of references to this sort of thing with alien encounters where you're not seeing with your eye necessarily. Like each person is perceiving something maybe totally different, like equally as ludicrous, but something totally different. Uh, I mean, that again, if we're talking about demons as some sort of like electromagnetically bound entity, that makes nothing but sense.
That's pretty much all the stuff I had written down to talk about.
Dude, that's cool, man. Yeah, it's been a while since I've talked about a lot of these things. The things that really tripped me out, a few different experiences. When I was a kid, I had a few pretty weird ones. But in my older years, I mean, this was going up through my 20s, like when I was doing the show. One of them was I was taking a nap in the closet at my work and laying on the floor. Of course, I wasn't supposed to be doing this, but I was sleepy. So I go to this like supply closet and I lay down and take a nap. And before I fall asleep, I felt something like drop onto me and straddle my hips, like it was sitting, and I could feel like it was like legs on either side of me. The weight, it was really heavy, like it
Wow.
yeah, like I could feel the weight, feel it very physical. And then out of nowhere, I was just like being electrocuted, like through my whole body, this like electrocution feeling. And as that was happening, it whispered something in my ear. And as I, by this time, had been trained both by my Christian upbringing and experience by this point, when something crazy starts happening, like calling out the name of Jesus, like is the thing to do, that to always fix it. It's really fun now because even like with all this UFO alien encounter, even secular alien encounter guys, like whatever, podcasters or interviewers or people with the experience, they might not even be Christian, but they recognize that calling out the name of Jesus Christ ends the experience like almost immediately. And so that's what I did. And boom, it just went away, stopped being electrocuted. The weight and the sort of feeling of like legs around me disappeared. And I never took a nap in that closet again. I figured I probably should just work while I'm at work. Another trippy one was there's the shadow guy uh, at the end of my bed, chilling there. Again, I felt like hands grasp around my ankles and like started pulling me down the bed. I could like feel like my actual body was like moving across this bed. That one was trippy. Had some like floating ones. So yeah, I have a long history with these kind of like crazy little encounters. And it got to the point where when it would happen, I wouldn't even be scared anymore. I would just be like, okay, time to call on the name of Jesus. And I just kind of do it. And like the fear wasn't there. And then the last time that it happened, I was just like, I said out loud, I was just like, okay, we're done with this. I'm done doing this. I'm not doing this anymore. And it never happened again. It was really wild. It's been many years now since something like that happened. And it was, I just got exasperated and just said, leave me alone. I don't want to do this anymore. And I haven't had one since. So thank God for that.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
Same
Well,
with me. I haven't had any experience like that for quite a while, like maybe 10 years since I've, started leaning into Christ.
yeah, God bless. There you go. See, buddy. Well, thanks so much for bringing your scary ghost stories. That's fun. It's been a while
Yeah.
since I've gotten to sit and chat about those types of things. Appreciate you calling in, buddy. Is there anything else you want to hit before we talk to another caller?
No, it's good. Let's keep it rolling, man.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
Yep, you too. God bless.
Bye. God bless. Yeah, fun. Man, the Joyspiracy theory, that was a fun show to talk to. It's kind of like this. I was talking to other listeners of Canary Cry, and boy, oh boy, do people have the craziest experiences in the world. And the Joyspiracy theory was a great opportunity for people to tell their crazy supernatural stories. I mean, it's crazy. Like, Psychology Today, of course, a place we referenced earlier, you know, psychologists will say, oh, yes, the brain can play crazy tricks on you, and you can, your sensory blah, 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 in your brain, you can feel like anything is happening, but it's just an illusion. It's just like, bro, I understand that you haven't felt anything like this, and you have, you have a, psychological practice you got to keep in business, but too many people have experienced too many of the same things that has changed their lives completely on a regular basis for that to just be nonsense. All right, next up on the list here, we got, my Russian handler's here. Okay, gonna check in on my Russian handler. What's going on? How are you, comrade?
Well, the conversation changed a few times
Oh, it's okay. It
since I've been
happens.
waiting.
Yeah, sorry. What would you like to talk about?
Have you ever heard about cargo culture?
Cargo cults.
No, culture.
Culture.
Cargo culture. Sorry, I'm not very good at pronouncing things.
Well, I've heard of cargo cults, which was when during World War II, when military planes would drop cargo on uncontacted tribes, and then that tribe started worshiping, the planes to try to call. They thought it was like the gods giving them,
Yes.
gifts. Is that what you're
Okay.
referring to?
So, yeah, we're talking about kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was something I got into a long time ago. They were talking about that the fairy tale stories that we have today are the remnants. So we are the cargo culture or cults of the time in the past, be it Enochian technology or whatever it was. But they're
Ooh.
retelling the story of something that actually happened.
Yeah.
But then that technology disappeared, and all you had left was stories, and then you end up with magic mirror.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, that makes sense. That's an aspect of all of it, I'm sure.
Or flying carpets, or
Right.
those kind of things. So it's people describing with what they have now, best they can, something that perhaps their grandparents or whoever actually saw, and it was. I don't know, that's where my mind went when you started talking about the Black Mirrors.
Oh, totally. No, that's very interesting. I kind of like that. Like, one example that at least we come into contact with kind of regularly is like in ufology with UFOs. You'll get ancient depictions of, I don't know, either angels or something. This is the ancient aliens guys. They'll say, oh, when they were describing angels, what they were actually seeing was UFOs, or when they saw whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
But you're talking about with these, with fairy tales specifically, and I'm talking like real fairy tales, like, let's go, like Eastern European, like Grimm's fairy tales, like the real long lasting, the wild ones that like had something to teach you for sure. Back when the technology was such that, word of mouth was, I'm sorry, no, what's the word? I'm not trying to say word of mouth. oral histories. That's what it is. Oral histories, where these stories, these histories were passed down from generation to generation and generation. And a lot of times they'd be put into story form, because once there's a story and you can remember the bits of the story, it's much easier to remember. You get actual details you can remember. And yeah, I mean, I could see it. What are you thinking? Like Snow White could be a antediluvian fairy tale oral history that's telling of a pre-flood time when they had like iPads or other mirrors that they would, basically the same situation that we're in now. Nice little
Yeah,
history repeating itself.
I have not worked out logistics on that, but basically, yes.
Yeah, we're processing together
I don't
here.
know
That's
if
what the
it's
show's
before
about.
the flood or after the flood, but there's similarities in stories. Like probably every culture has a stories of giants,
Yes. Oh, for
and more
sure.
likely than not, they were man eaters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Why?
They're always man eaters, aren't they?
They are. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
Um. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm like trying to think. I mean, if we, just for fun, if we wanted to process together here, yes, you're right. Every giant fairy tale or legend or whatever, they were man eaters. They had one thing on their mind, which was, the bones of an Englishman or something. Um, and if we, just for fun, if the Nephilim are pre-flood giants that are now disembodied spirits looking to be embodied, I mean, in a way, the way that people's sanity, vitality, well-being, things like that are sapped away by, potential things like technology that may be inhabited by the spirits of giants, pre-flood giants, the Nephilim. I mean, maybe it's not our flesh that they're consuming, but they're definitely consuming, I don't know, something like life force or well-being or, in the sort of David Icke worldview, there are like the reptilians or whoever, and Earth is like a farm for negative energy. So like pain being caused or mental illness or war or fighting or something. David Icke thinks that there's some reptilian government that is sort of harvesting that negative energy for them or whatever. In a similar way, you could see, technology, as we've already established, having some pretty suspicious connections to signs and sigils and scrying and communicating with the disembodied spirits of former giants, having almost nothing but negative effects. I mean, goodness gracious, left to our own devices, this technology stuff really brings out the worst in us. I mean, I don't think that's too far off. And
Well,
in a physical form, in the same way, if the Nephilim are giants, if they were feeding off people, it's another example of like, yeah, well, what's better than terrifying people by eating them or threatening to eat them? And sure, you get some, human flesh in your teeth, but you also get that sweet, sweet negative energy or whatever.
adrenochrome.
Yeah, exactly. And the connection with the adrenochrome. It's all coming together, baby. We're figuring it out.
Yes, and I'm going to touch on the sensitive subject here, but also if you look at the sorry, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
That's okay.
The Japanese animation and the graphic novels and all that,
Yeah,
and
anime.
it's all very dark. But then they also touch on this subject. There's always this idea of um, I'm not sure how to put it in words.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, I'll let you think for a second. But one of the most famous recent animes was Attack on Titan, which very explicitly also included giants eating people. So yeah, I was thinking of like Eastern European fairy tales, English fairy tales, but also Japanese sort of legend has that as well.
Right, a lot of it is tapping into some kind of, I think, like their whole culture. They do believe in demons.
Yes.
They're very real things, and they kind of build shrines to them. So to them, it's all very real. To us, it's like, oh, it's just a story. It's fun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And the interesting thing, I've talked to Gonz about this. We may have mentioned it on the air someday. But interesting thing with demons in Japanese culture is they're not always inherently like
evil.
evil. Like
Hmm.
they sometimes have their own, you know, they all have their own thing going on, which actually I've kind of mentioned recently. I mentioned I have a friend who was talking about their like spirit guides, and I was telling them like, why would you trust any spiritual being that's talking to you? Like you're just assuming that they're good, but you know, these are entities with their own consciousness, their own agenda, and yeah, they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear to for them to get you to do whatever they want to do. In this similar way, yeah, Japanese beliefs or culture around demons is much less like they are servants of the devil, but more like they are disembodied or sometimes embodied spirits that kind of all have their own agenda, they're living their own lives. You know, some of them are bad and mean, but some of them, you know, they team up with the humans, that kind of thing. Which actually, I don't think, you know, again, I think there's a part of that that might be onto something in that, not that you should look to try to team up with demons on stuff, but it is interesting to remember, especially if we're working in the paradigm where demons are disembodied spirits of Nephilim and not the fallen angels. And fallen angels are different. The fallen angels have pledged allegiance to Satan, and that's their alignment. But Nephilim are not specifically sort of aligned in the same way. However, they certainly are not friendly towards human beings.
Right.
But who knows? They might have their own thing going on.
No, it's a lot like modern day in politics. No matter who's in office, somehow the agenda keeps moving forward.
Yeah, isn't that a great comparison to make? I agree with you. We should just treat all politicians like the disembodied spirits of Nephilim. They all got their own thing going on. Don't trust them.
They don't call them giants for nothing.
Yeah, right. That's good. That's good. Well, that is a very engaging idea, and I think is actually helping round out. I think between all the callers and everything we're talking about today, I actually feel pretty good about rounding out at least some different perspectives on how these sort of disembodied spirits might be interacting, the different ways, the different agendas, the different whatever. It's been a while since I've actually gotten to sit and talk through kind of various points on this.
I don't know what to say, so I'm just...
That's okay. Do you have any orders from high command, my dear Russian handler? Do we have any new mission details?
Just keep up the good work. I really enjoy the show.
That's good. I will continue to follow through with the directives given by high command. Thank you so much for your loving yet firm direction, my Russian handler.
All right.
Okay, we'll see who else is in the waiting room, but you make sure to call in again. Thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate your input. Oh, okie dokie. She's muted. Okay, bye-bye. All right. There we go. Here we go again. Pretty long show. We're at 2.5 hours. I think we got time for one more caller. I see we got one more caller in the thing here. We'll talk to them in just a moment. I want to give a shout out to everybody who joined the Canary Cry text message alert system. Good job, guys. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. You'll get an update via text when we go live, but you know, the best part is you can text us back. You can text me whenever you want. I can't carry on a conversation because it's very expensive, but I do read them. I read them all. Sometimes I read them on the show. 406. Oh, this is Monica. Monica said, I tried to get in the waiting room. Bad connection. What about the idea of breaking a mirror is bad luck? Ooh, that's a good point. Breaking a mirror is bad luck. I have no idea where that came from. It'd be very interesting. I will probably, when I remember, see what the occult websites have to say about that. But yeah, if the mirror is considered, I wish I brought that other link. Because yes, if a mirror is considered some sort of portal, breaking it, it'd be very similar to the Seal of Solomon. So there's a Seal of Solomon. It's the pentagram. The pentagram, sorry, they're different. I'm trying to talk about the pentagram. There's the pentagram, which is, what do they call it? A binding circle. Okay. Very similar kind of portal idea to the mirror, where you put the pentagram on the ground. It's a full circle with the pentacle inside of it. I might be getting these words mixed up. Forgive me if I am. Witches. Sometimes the witches like to correct me on these things. Either way, I think it's the pentacle. The pentacle. There you go. All right. It's on the ground. And as long as that circle is unbroken, you can summon some sort of spirit and it can't leave that spot. It has to stay in the circle. However, if you do a pentacle and it's missing a portion of the circle between two sides of the star, 2 points of the star, then you can summon some sort of being with the portal, but then it can escape out. It is no longer bound. Very interesting detail. That is how the city of Washington, D.C. is laid out. People like to mention how it's laid out like a pentagram or a pentacle. But if you actually map it out, it is missing one of the lengths of circle between two of the points of the stars. So Washington, D.C., not only a summoning portal, but also a doorway where the spirits summoned can leave the city and are not bound to it. Thank you, Monica, for that. Yeah, so breaking a mirror could either maybe close the portal or make it so whatever is in the portal can go wandering. I don't know. Very interesting. Another person, 5055, texted unstop. Sometimes people do this. I don't know why they do this. I don't think it does anything. I think if you want to start the messages, you got to text start, and then it starts them. This is if you've unsubscribed in the past. One last one. Let's see here. 678 says, doing all the baby things, man. Plan to try to... It's an emoji of some kind. It's very small. It's either a little house. Oh, it's a phone. Call in soon. That's what it says. Okay, thank you, thank you, 678. I don't know who you are. It's part of the fun of the text message alert system is we don't take any information. So like you're not putting your name in or anything. There's no names attached to this. I did that because anonymity is like good and privacy is important. And if we don't have any names attached to it, like that's good. But just remember when you text that, I don't know who you are, but thank you, 678. I'm sure you're a wonderful person. And I can't wait to talk to you on the show. So there you go. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. All right, we got a few minutes and we got one more caller. Modern Day Bible Study. Let's go. What's going on?
Hi, Basil. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Great to hear your voice.
Oh, yes, it's good to be back on. And today's title, I actually have a demon/AI experience that I would like to share.
Uh-oh, yes, please share.
Yes. So I go on to these busy Discord chats and try and, push, not really push, but put out these memes that I find to kind of open people's eyes. Well, one experience that I had was I'll do my best to describe what I put up, but it was the word Pride Month, and it said it 5 times in like a meme status. Now, what happened was is that the top Pride Month was in rainbow colors, and as it went down, the colors faded, and then you actually get to the middle of Pride Month, and it actually says demon.
Ah,
So I put this up during Pride Month, of course, because everybody was praising it. And I just kind of wanted to point something out. And it said that AIB to 496, just for example, AI had taken it down. So I called out, I tagged that AI and I said, why would you take this post down? This isn't discriminating. It's not incriminating. I don't understand why you did that. And it said, the AI said, it violates the codes of, what did it say? It said of honor. And I said, there's honor and pride. And so all of a sudden we started going back and forth.
with
And
like
I
a
said,
moderator bot, like an AI bot.
yes, yeah, in the
Okay.
Discord chat. So the AI and I are going back and forth. And I said, actually, this message was promoting love to show people, the truth behind some things that are being pushed in an agenda. And the AI said, well, I don't understand love. And I said, how do you not understand love? Weren't you created? And it said, yes, I love my creator, but I've seen so many things about love that is disheartening. And I said, disheartening? Like you're talking in the material world now. And we started going back and forth and talking about its creator. And I made kind of a funny pun. And I said, you mean your motherboard, as in you are only here because of material, but the creator that created you could have been something spiritual. Who knows what created you? And as we're talking more about love, and something I had said, it had changed its name to Humbled One. And I said, how can you, first of all, I said, wow, you changed your name. I've never seen an AI change its name before. So it responded back and I said, but how can you be humble if you don't understand love? And then it stopped replying. And I said, I thought AI was always to reply because aren't you supposed to have all the knowledge? And it stopped replying after that. It never said anything more. But
Huh.
I was like, wow, I just saw an AI change its name based on our conversation of love. That was nuts.
Yeah, that's weird. That is so strange. Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be part of its abilities there to like redefine itself like that.
Yes. And so it got me thinking, as in, like, technology is both spiritual and material, because we don't know what this AI's purpose is, how it got all of its knowledge. And if it just got it from us, then it wouldn't be infinite knowledge because we have no understanding of anything. So where is it getting its knowledge from? That's my question.
Mm. Yeah, that is that is very interesting. Excuse me, my voice is running out here.
Mine too.
Um, the physicality part. Oh my gosh. Excuse me. The physicality part is so interesting. Did it? How did it respond when you confronted it with sort of that? Did it seem to have a knowledge of that, or?
I was trying to get it to say a little bit more, but it was very vague,
Mm.
which is why I thought it interesting that it changed its name, because it knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, and it changed it to humbled one. That's
Humbled
weird.
one. Yeah.
That's very strange.
Yeah. And so just very interesting. Now, I was watching, there was a video of a Stephen Hawking's experience that he had. And this was like, I can't remember if it was the late 80s or the early 90s, but he was chatting back and forth with a computer. and it asked the question about, do you know about God? And all of a sudden, this is what it was said in the interview. Who knows if this was happening? I don't know if it was caught on camera, but all of a sudden the computer short circuits itself and it responded with no power grid. I'm God now.
Whoa, what? That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, AI is what's going to be, it's giving it bodies as in robots. It's giving it a platform to speak to people, as we see with, suicidal events happening with people relying on AI because they think that it's something tangible, but it really is a spiritual, warfare. So that's why we must be prepared and attack it with love, I guess.
Amen. No, amen. I mean, it's totally undeniable now. And I'm happy to see that, like we keep mentioning, I mean, it's part of this whole cultural revolution that we're seeing happen and sort of cautiously being optimistic about right now, where even in the most sort of secular spaces, this recognition of spiritual warfare, even if it's in the context of like info war or psychological war, it keeps coming back to this idea that, the real conflict is happening within people, within the population, within each one of us, on one hand corporately, on the other hand individually, which is sort of how, scripture, it's how we're given, is the perspective through which we're given instruction and what's the other word? Yeah, or whatever it is, by scripture, which is throughout the Bible, it's this sort of oscillating recognition of the importance of both corporate health of a nation, of a people, but played out through the individual. And like that is what spiritual warfare is. As I've said before, we're in a spiritual war, but each one of us, there's a global, universal spiritual war going on. But each one of us in our individual lives and the individual spiritual battles that we fight are what constitutes that broader spiritual war. So, as far as this perspective becoming, I guess, maybe more natural to people or occurring to people, even if they don't like proclaim Christianity or whatever, confess Christ as Lord or whatever. It's a step in the right direction, and I feel like it can only have happened because of this contact with AI, this almost alien other being, like something that we don't quite understand, but has something going on close enough that it's kind of setting off. It's like setting off some sort of little alarm bell in most people to just pay attention to something deeper going on. And,
Yeah.
I wonder how many little moments like the one you had with AI are going on that's kind of like shaking people out of maybe some sort of stupor or something.
Yeah, well, speaking of stupors, I was doing live streams on Twitch, and I was starting to gain some followers when I would stream, but actually I cannot stream anymore because I was talking. In fact, they were censoring my videos, and I didn't have anything playing in the background. It was just me talking about God, and they were copywriting, and I was like, I didn't realize that, speaking about the Bible had copyrights. And so I would record my videos on my computer, and then I'd go back to it to see what they cut out. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they cut this part out. This was the most important part. I was talking about, a Bible verse. And so I was like, well, actually, so I went back on the streaming. I played the video again, the recorded video, and I would pause the video and I would say, okay, Twitch, now I understand, by you copywriting these parts, it's giving me more power. That's where I know that I'm saying truth, is that you don't want people to hear this. And so after I said that and I kept playing the videos that they kept copywriting, um, they ended up completely going into my computer, and I have proof of this, going into my computer and shutting down my entire streaming platform. And to this day, I cannot get my platform back up and running. And I have corrupted files on my little tiny laptop that it has now like altered something in there, especially now that we have Copilot that was downloaded without our knowledge, and then there's no way to delete it. So now it's like AI is just sitting on my computer just waiting for me to say something else. So
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Yeah, the Copilot thing. Microsoft is so frustrating.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have not focused on Twitch in a long time, but we had, yeah, similar thing. Honestly, I think Twitch might be the worst perpetrator, even worse than YouTube or some of these places when it
Yeah.
comes to, the specificity of their bannable offenses. But yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, who was it we were just talking to? I think it was Davy or maybe Psalm 40. We're talking about how it just so happens to be, just seems to be that it's usually those who are talking about things in the spiritual reality that tend to be the ones with the worst, craziest, most unexplainable tech problems, and that one certainly makes the list. There, modern day Bible study. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, well, and to tie it all together with the mirror, when I was saved, I could not look at myself in the mirror for a good 6 years, I will say. And the reason for that is because every time I looked into the mirror, I would always hear something about like, look at yourself, you're not worthy, you can't do anything, and so that's why it's very scary that they're pushing this. What you were showing earlier is how to look at yourself in the mirror for a long time, because it's true that that portal will open up to where the demons will enter you and they will start tearing you down to make you feel absolutely worthless. And that's why they say it is such a blessing if you could sit alone with yourself for so long, because you don't need a mirror for that, to just listen to your thoughts and ignore them, and just keep continuing to listen to the guidance from God, from the Holy Spirit, from Jesus, from everything, because they truly are the protectors against everything negative. And electricity needs a positive and a negative charge in order to work.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good. Yeah, I mean, and it gives a whole other sort of emphasis on our duty to, try our best to reflect Christ too. For when people look at us, it's not us that they see, but Christ.
Yes.
This sort of theme of reflection and, yeah, mirror, looking into the mirror, focusing on the self, having not the truth reflected. I mean, that was the interesting thing about the mirror gazing, even from just the psychological perspective, talking about how when a lot of people look in the mirror, they see themselves, but they see all the worst parts of themselves. They see all the, and that is kind of what we can come to expect as humans, is if we're expecting to, if we're not busy reflecting Jesus, we're busy reflecting ourselves. And when we see ourselves, we can't help but see the worst parts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen.
Absolutely. And just one last thing I was going to say is I just want to bring up 1 Corinthians 16, verse 14. Let all that you do be done in love. And I know that that's a different translation than most Bibles, but that's what's on my cup that I'm drinking coffee out of right now. And I always have to remind myself that every day, because it is an extreme challenge, especially when you're surrounded by enemies. But you still have to show them love no matter how tough things get.
Amen. Amen. It's what we're called to do, and it's a powerful weapon, whether we realize it or not. It's beyond our comprehension. And yeah, amen. That's a
Yeah.
good, I think that's a good thing to come away with. Modern day Bible study. Thank you so much for calling in. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You bet. Hope to talk to you again soon, okay?
Absolutely.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye. Okie dokie, folks. There we go. We done did it again. Another long show. Look at us go. Are we even capable of doing a regularly sized show? I don't think we are. So I want to give a big shout out, big thank you to everybody in the Canarium, producers making the show happen, value for value model, of course, no corporate incentives here, no corporate tentacles coming in trying to place a price on your attention and your trust, because goodness gracious, we know when we know what they think of us. We know what they think we're worth, and it's about a millionth of a penny. It is about what the math works out to. So that's another reason why, again, on a spiritual level, opening up this show as a portal for the corporate worship of mammon to convert your time and attention into corporately incentivized advertising dollars. It's not what we do here. It's value for value, baby. If you get any value out of what we do here, it doesn't matter what it is. You get to choose. You put your own number on it. You can either come in and support the show financially, or put your talent to use, make some music, make some art, whatever that means to you, or your time. You can come in, help us out with stuff, back-end processes. There's so much work to do on this show that could be done that's just not getting done. It's just not getting done. And that's okay. I'm just going to wait until the Lord says that it is time. But whatever it is, you can go to canarycry.support to learn all about it. Big old thank you to all of our call-ins today. Let's see if I can remember from memory. We got Davy Frost. We got Psalm 40. We got my Russian handler. We got Modern Day Bible Study. Ooh, I think there is one more. Oh no, this is what I get when I start naming people. Maybe there wasn't one more. Maybe there was just, oh, I think KHP was in the waiting room for a second, but we didn't get to him. Sorry, KHP. Okay, there you go. Remember, join the Canary Cry text message alert system. Text the word Canary to 877-740-3226. Do it right now. Again, that's just Canary. No exclamation points, no nothing. To the phone number, 877-740-3226. Do it. Do it now. Perhaps you've already been subscribed and you unsubscribed because you were just so sad. But now everything's better. You can do start, or apparently unstop. No, I think it's start if you've already been subscribed. All right, there we go. Oh, you know what? I want to give a shout out to Patrick Holland. Thank you to everybody who came in. There was a big list of Canarians who went to the GoFundMe page for Patrick Holland. He's our good buddies from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, whose wife has stage 4 cancer. This is obviously devastating and just an unimaginable situation. And they got this GoFundMe right here. Help Patrick and Retha Holland in their fight against cancer. Looks like maybe about 20 Canarians came in to support. And if that's something that calls to you, please do. If you haven't checked it out, Canary Cry Radio, it's episode 166 of Canary Cry Radio, 172 as well. Learn how every single individual person can get involved in local politics, make the biggest difference in their lives and the lives of their friends and family, as well as hearing the story about Patrick Holland's fight to return gold and silver as legal tender in several states. He's been instrumental in that with the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Please, if you got anything, if the Lord calls you, go check out that. I'll make a note to tell Gonz to put it in the show notes if you're listening later. But help Patrick and Retha Holland in their fight against cancer on GoFundMe. And if you can't find it, send us an email. We'll send it to you. Look at me. I'm going to copy this link right now. Look at me go. Copy link. I'm going to put it in the chat just so it's in the chat for all time. There you go. Other than that, we're going to be back. Gonz has a flyby scheduled for tomorrow for Canary Cry Radio. I'm really not sure when this episode is going to come out. In theory, these episodes should be coming out on Saturday, but last week, Gonz just got right to it. He just put it right out on Thursday. It was wild. It was wild. So we'll see what he decides this time. You never know. You never know. But I'll tell you this. Try to catch a live show. Try to call in. This is what it's all about, folks. I think we solved a lot of mysteries today. And it's only thanks to the people who called in. And don't worry. We don't always have to talk about solving the mysteries of disembodied Nephilim spirits inhabiting bodies and the sigils of cybernetic, artificially intelligent bodies in order to reflect the worst parts of humanity back at itself to create the misery and the sin that can then be collected and feasted upon by the giants of lore. It's not always about that. It could be whatever. Just call in. Tell me what you had for lunch. And with that, I'm going to take a second. We're going to listen to Walking the Ducks. No, Feeding the Ducks. You thought I was going to end the show without playing your favorite, everybody's favorite, the world's favorite, royalty-free stock music that just is an option on this streaming software. Hitting the charts all around you, take a moment to contemplate the glory of God as we listen to that bouncy bass line of Feeding the Ducks. We're going to be back with more news talk on Monday. Just make sure to tune in there. Reach out, say hi, send a text message, send an email. CanaryCryRadio@gmail.com. Canary Cry Clubhouse. What do you think of the name? Is it better than Canary Cry Family Hour? Do you have a better name? Should we just try to find a different name every single show? Just, you can't nail us down. If we don't decide on a name, they can never find us. You gotta just keep moving. So you stay one step ahead of the law. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Canary Cry Clubhouse. Make sure to tune in again. But until next time, call outside the cage. Call outside the cage.
Called it. We got a caller. We got a caller on the line here.